Hello, everyone that is going to see this recording.
Hi, and welcome to
The Higgledy Piggledy podcast.
Thanks, Keanu. Today I am Peter. Some days I'm not, but today I am, and I'm joined by my illustrious co-host.
I am feeling like Alex today,
Tight.
as opposed to all the other days where I also feel like Alex.
Yeah, this is a podcast. We do podcasting stuff. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment, share. I didn't say favorite this time because that's not a thing, and I did it at the beginning of the podcast. I'm learning. I may or may not have, like 6 hours ago, gone, when you do the podcast later tonight, fucking do the bit at the beginning. But
I was thinking, like, because we discussed a few episodes ago that we should like write it down somewhere to remind us, or like put put a new sound effect on the board at the beginning. We just never did any of that.
Nope.
we just immediately forgot. So I'm glad you're learning, because I just forget every week again as well. So
But if you're new to this channel, that's us to a T, because we say stuff like, "Oh, we'll do this series at some point," and then we don't. We just we're liars and frauds, and maybe one day the Piston Cup will be a thing. It's probably been being. I kind of want to go and try and find out when it was promised initially, but I'm not sure I'd be able to find the exact video, because I feel like we started doing chapters around about episode 4, and I feel like it was probably just before episode 4. Either way, we're on like episode 22 or something now. That's about half a year, especially when you include 24. We're on episode 24.
yeah.
So we're nearly at half a year's worth of content, and we've missed weeks. So we probably have been doing this for more than 6 months. I'm pretty sure that it's getting close to 6 months of the Piston Cup being promised.
Yeah, like, and when I say all this stuff that I want to, do these different series and like the Piston Cup, I genuinely mean it.
Yeah, same.
I do want to do them, but like I'm just such a terrible human that I just can't. My brain just doesn't let me. It's the same with writing, like my book or my like the script I want to go to. It's like I think about ideas for it all the time. I even write them down most of the time, but then when it comes to actually thinking, oh, let's set a date and just sit down and do this. Nope, my brain's like, so what game do I want to play? Or, oh, what's on Netflix now?
I find myself frequently, for some reason, stretch Armstronging myself, which is weird because I fucking hate being stretched Armstronged at work. Not going to say what I do now or who I used to work for or anything, but part of the reason why I left my last job was because I was being stretched Armstronged constantly for 2 years during COVID, and I just went, I'm done with this. I want to move somewhere where I'm not constantly being pulled in different directions and not given a time to go back to normal. But then in my personal life, I go, okay, we've got to do the maps of the Star Wars campaign every single week. Oh, my brother wants me to run a campaign. I can fit in another campaign. Oh, I should write my book at some point. I need to work on Redacted with Tommy at some point. Oh, I've got a podcast to do. I'd like to get back into streaming regularly at some point. And it's just like, it just gets worse. And also I'm working on Songs Free in the background. And it's just like, I don't have time for any of this. Or I do, but not all of it. But I just keep on adding stuff, and then I slowly chip stuff away, and then add more stuff in, rather than...
See, I just don't even do that. I just end, like, I have all of this that I want to do, and I just end up doing none of it. And I think my problem is I just can't prioritize. Like, because I think I start doing one thing, and then I feel like almost guilty that I'm doing this one thing over everything else, when it really doesn't have any more importance or less importance than everything else. So yeah, my brain just gets all like muddled up.
Well, I think in general, like, setting yourself deadlines helps a lot. It's really easy to make sure that I do the stuff that I need to for a campaign every single week, whether it's Star Wars or D&D or whatever. I'll make sure that I have the stuff ready, unless I genuinely run out of time because my life gets so busy, which can happen, but it's not very often, because that's my priority. I'll literally be like, I'll watch TV while making maps, and I'll make sure it gets done. But then the other stuff doesn't really, like Songs Free, I'm chipping away at it. If you've ever watched, you haven't watched Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who run, have you?
I've seen like a couple of episodes, but
Okay.
that's
Well,
it.
I'm the bird chipping through the mountain of infinity or whatever it's called. The quote is something along the lines of a bird comes and pecks a mountain every single day or whatever, and then once it finally manages to peck a tunnel all the way through the mountain, the first second of infinity will have passed. I probably butchered that quote. It's a really good quote from a really good episode of Peter Capaldi's Run, but whatever, I got the gist of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so but I also find the other problem with things like the Piston Cup is that the Piston Cup is almost entirely yours and Tommy's responsibility. I'm not really involved, Calum's not really involved, Samo's not really involved, and how to put this politely.
Don't put it politely. I totally get it. I'm aware of like
I'm just trying to work it. Yeah, okay. So you're like bran flakes.
bran flakes.
You're bran flakes. You not heard of bran flakes?
I mean, yeah, I know what bran flakes are,
right.
but I'm just curious about
You're
them.
you're like bran flakes, and Tommy's like corn flakes. They're even thinner, but they're still flaky as fuck.
Yeah, no, it's accurate. I mean, I can't deny it, you know. I'll be the first one to admit that, you know, we often just come up with ideas and like come up. I actually, thinking about it, one of the reasons that I think we just haven't done it is because it started out as a very simple concept. We were going to have one race on cars, and that was the Piston Cup. And then we went away, thought about it, and it turned into like this grand event that we were going to start doing every year, and we were going to have like different challenges and like across different games and like punishments and stuff. And it's like that takes so long to fucking plan.
Okay.
I could literally boot up cars tomorrow
Okay.
with Tom
Hold
and
on.
like
Hold
film
on.
a race.
Hold on. How does doing it yearly with different games affect it this year? You could just boot up cars tomorrow and do the race with Tommy. How does the punishment affect it? Because we've already got what the punishments are planned out, and we can cross that bridge when we come to it. And I can't remember what my third point was, but nothing is stopping you from just booting up cars tomorrow and doing it.
The punishment thing, I mean, like while we're doing it,
Oh,
like or not.
just
I guess not punishments, but like, you know, added things to it that make it more difficult for us to like concentrate, stuff like that.
Well,
And like,
for
I
that,
totally
just
agree.
get
I think
just,
we need to just go back to basics.
or just
'cause-
get fucking drunk. That's a good enough punishment / difficulty blocker. But to if I was to give any advice to any content creators, I say as someone who's on a podcast that currently gets like 10 views if we're lucky, unless we put. Have you noticed, by the way, that Tommy's face on a thumbnail usually gets us like an extra 10 views?
Really?
Yeah, I've started to notice this
hadn't
trend.
noticed that.
Yeah, like most of the ones that have his face on it have more views than the ones that don't have his face on it. So, thanks.
So Tom's our poster boy then. Eh?
Yeah, but I feel like he can't really do that if he's not appearing in it. Or can he? Maybe what we need to do is change the thumbnail tactic so it's always Tommy's face is the large one, but to make sure it's still accurate, it's still got someone who's on the actual podcast face on the thumbnail somewhere.
That's really strange.
Yeah,
I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, if I load up our channel. Anyways, the point I was going to make is, as someone who runs a fairly small channel and also runs a personal channel, which is also fairly small, oh god. I'm going to potentially have to edit. Hold on. I may have accidentally had Kate Bush's Running Up the Hill briefly play. What time are we in? We're like 9 minutes in. Just making sure that I don't accidentally get us copyright struck for playing 2 seconds of Running Up That Hill when I change channel over to our channel. God, this is taking a long time. I thought this would be a really quick thing, and then it's not. Last video with Tommy's face on the thumbnail got 24 views, and that's the most we've had since then.
What was that episode?
That was Is This the Last 4? And it was a picture of Tommy's face photoshopped on top of 4 when the 4 trailer dropped. The one before that also had the next highest one before that is us playing Baldur's Gate. Then before that is also Tommy's face on top of the Twi'lek from Book of Boba Fett. And then the one where it's you and Tommy in Cobra Kai, that's 25 views. So all of them are just like slightly higher than our average when Tommy's face is on it. So, anyways.
I mean, it could just be a major coincidence and it was the topic.
I mean,
but, like,
I am trying to work
strange.
out better title systems to make sure, because like I found that like when it's about us, it doesn't really do as well because we don't have. Anyway, why are we talking about this on the actual podcast? Is anyone interested in this? The point I was going to make: if you're going to make content, start just making content. Don't worry about high quality microphone, high quality camera, lights, anything like that. Just make content. And then if you get a following and you can spend more money on it because it's worthwhile, then you can invest more money into it. But you shouldn't go and buy a £200 microphone and a £500 camera and whatever when you're starting, because then you've done £700 of investment to potentially get zero back from it. If you've gotten nearly £700 worth of value out of making your content, then you can invest. Now, that's not to say you absolutely can't invest in better equipment beforehand, but you're taking a risk, so only then do it if you're enjoying it. But basically, if you're trying to make a career out of this, which you shouldn't go into content creation to make a career anyways, but if you're trying to make a career out of it, don't splurge loads of money before you actually have a following. So just do the Piston Cup is the point I was going to make about 5 minutes ago before I started talking about analytics and Tommy's face and all of that dumb shit. Especially Tommy's face, that is dumb shit.
I agree.
You know what I could
It's
briefly
stupid
talk about,
face.
though? I don't know if you've ever talked about the cryptid photos on the podcast, but if I talk about cryptid photos on the podcast, they're all photos of Tommy. We can put a cryptid photo of Tommy as the thumbnail. There we go. Playing that system. I don't think it would get that many views. It has to be like with. Anyways, whatever. What are we talking about?
Disclaimer: we love Tommy and his stupid face. We just.
Yeah, I suppose he's not going to watch this. I don't have to say nice things about it. Alternatively, he's not going to watch this, so I should exclusively say nice things about it at him because he's never going to see it. So
just be like a massive dick to him, like face to face, and then just in videos, everything nice.
Yeah,
all from the heart.
He's a lovely guy. Also, if you're watching this and going, when do you release your episodes? Like, is there any consistency to when you do the podcast? We record it every Monday. We normally release it every Tuesday or Wednesday, except for when I go on a work conference and ask Alex to finish publishing it, or I upload a video for him before I go on the work conference. So I do it Monday evening. Just say, hey, it's all uploaded. Can you sort it out? And then he just doesn't. So I get back from my work conference on Thursday and have to finish it off. It's normally up like Tuesday, maybe Wednesday.
Yeah, Dude, I'm so fucking bad. I mean, the shorts didn't last very fucking long, did they? I just...
To be fair, I will give you credit where credit's due. I did discover last week when I was uploading this, a video file that I apparently never did anything with, which is the whole Samo what's Fupa thing from when he was on the podcast weeks ago. So, hey, if you see that uploaded at some point, it's from weeks ago at this point already. But,
I mean, it's still funny, and it's like doesn't have any relevancy to anything else.
It's
so,
not
like,
exactly
it's
like a
still good
topical
standalone video.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyways, what are we talking about this week?
I don't know if there is too much really.
No, I mean, in our topics there was just the two things, but then we could talk about Stranger Things if you finish that.
Yep.
We could talk a little bit more about The Boys because we've only really skimmed over The Boys. I've started Umbrella Academy, but I'm only 2 episodes into the 3rd season, so there's a couple of things we can talk about.
Yeah, I think Stranger Things will probably be a big topic anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about maybe doing a roll for insight on it, but I don't know.
I mean, we'll see like how far we get in today's podcast with like other things, and then if we're, really short on time, maybe we just do Stranger Things.
Or talk about the Batman for 2 hours.
Or that, yeah.
Did you watch the trailer for See How They Run?
I have not, but I can quickly skim through just to
I wouldn't
get a
bother, maybe
premise.
watch it later, but it's it was a trailer that I saw pop up on YouTube and I went, yeah, all right, I'll click on that. And it looks really fucking fun. Very rarely in trailers do you get me to laugh out loud. I laughed out loud at the final joke of this trailer. The basic premise of See How They Run is it's a whodunit, which I'm loving that whodunits are making a comeback. It's set in London in, I believe, the 1950s on the West End, where a murder most foul happens on the West End, and a hardened detective comes to investigate the murder, and he's accompanied by a young police officer played by I'm probably going to butcher her name because I haven't heard it pronounced in forever. Suarez. Nope. Oh God, Jesus. I'm going to have to say it spelled, and then I might have a stab at it. Suarez. Nope. I can't remember how to pronounce it. Fucking Christ. Okay. She's Irish, and she has a very Irish name.
I'm looking at it, and I used to be able to pronounce that name.
Same, but I just haven't heard it said in so long that I can't remember. She's the lead in Little Women, the recent Little Women film. All right, she was in Lady Bird. She's a really good actor, and I apologize profusely that I don't remember how to pronounce her name. It's like Rob McElhenney, but so much worse. Because anyways, it's starring her as this like young police officer who's like really, really eager, and so constantly in the trailer you're like seeing people like give a little bit of evidence, and she goes, "Aha! So you're guilty," and then the police detective's like, "No. They were just saying, you know, they maybe had motive," or and so there's this like kind of like fun dynamic there. It just seems like a really fun film, but my favorite bit was the final line of the trailer, or the final bit from the trailer, which is where the detective played by Sam Rockwell says, "So what made you think that he was acting suspiciously? What did he say?" And the like bell boy, whatever, says, "Well, it wasn't so much what he said; it was how he was behaving. Well, how was he behaving? Suspiciously." I saw a perfect comment, which is that it feels like a Wes Anderson film, but it's not directed by Wes Anderson, which is it just looks really, really fun. So
yeah, I'll definitely give that a watch later. It does sound pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, I also just really like that whodunits are coming back. We've obviously got Knives Out 2, Glass Onion coming out later this year as well. So yeah.
Yeah, Knives Out was pretty good actually. I kind of didn't expect much because
it was done by Ruin Johnson.
I mean, I don't know who. Well, I didn't even know that was done by him, honestly. But like, I don't know. It was one of those films where I didn't really look too much into it, and it wasn't something that would necessarily appeal to me. And I don't even know why I decided to watch it. I think it was one of those days where I was just like, oh, I'm just kind of bored. I'll stick it.
I won't do all these obligations I have. Instead, I'm going to watch something on Netflix.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I just stuck it on, watched it, and I was like, that was actually a pretty good use of my time, I think.
Yeah, it's a really
rather
fun
would have
film.
watched that than do any of my obligations.
I think the thing with whodunits is that whodunits, first of all, are quite hard to do. I have no idea how you'd ever write one. It's like such an intimidating prospect to me to try and come up with a funny murder mystery. You can maybe come up with a murder mystery, but a funny one? Oh, that's difficult. But the other thing with whodunits is that so many famous whodunits are famous. So you've seen them before, or you've heard of them before, so you know the premise, and therefore you know who done it. So like the Poirot films that have been being made recently by Kenneth Branagh, I don't know if they're good or not. I've heard middling things, but I don't have much desire to watch them because I know who done them. So like, I don't know, like a large part of the novelty of watching a mystery And then this isn't to say that no mysteries are of value, because like I quite liked watching Sherlock when that first came out, and a lot of that was adapting Sherlock Holmes stories, so you kind of knew where the story was going. But I don't know, I just feel like watching a straight adaptation of something like an Agatha Christie novel, I'm like, well, I've seen this before. Meanwhile, Knives Out is a completely original story, so you have no idea who done it, and therefore you're trying to work out who done it as you're watching the who done it, which is kind of the point. And so similar sort of thing with See How They Run. It's an original story, so I'm excited to find out who done it.
When I went up to my nan's a few weeks ago, we just had like the TV on, just on whatever, and it just so happened that the channel we were watching were just doing back-to-back repeats of Midsummer Murders, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. I got to say, like, it's just like funny in some cases. Like a lot of the characters are just very what's the word? Like when they just kind of like appeal to you.
Charismatic.
Nah, there's a word for it, but I think it starts with a P, but I can't. I swear, every time I do this podcast, my brain just turns to mush.
Not as bad as when you've had pizza, believe me.
True, very true. But yeah, I can't think of the word. But yeah, I thought it was very well done, and you know, I was really trying to work out, you know, who done it, and I couldn't. Like, I'm sure there maybe were a few things that I could have picked up that I didn't, but they're so well thought out, and just like it's so extravagant, like the stuff they come up with, and it just makes me think the people that write this have got to be criminals or would be excellent criminals, because like I'm trying to think of, you know, if I wanted to write a murder mystery, I genuinely just don't think I could. Like obviously I think the sort of way they go about it is they kind of work out the murder first and then go backwards, you know, and then sort of like leave little pieces here and there. I just wouldn't be able to do that. You know, it's things like you know, using like a particular sort of gas that they put in some guy's vape. Like, what the fuck? And it's like
was that in Midsummer Murders?
Yeah.
I thought Midsummer Murders ended like 10 years ago. Were vapes around 10 years ago?
No. It's still going.
Oh, really? Jeez,
Like,
okay, wow.
I found this out when I was watching it, because I recognized the dude, but I also thought to myself, I swear he wasn't in Midsummer Murders. I swear there was a different guy. And what it turns out is that it used to be with a different guy, but then he like retired from the show or died or something. And then so like either his like cousin or brother or something in the show took over from him.
Right.
Or nephew or something like that, you know, one of his family members took over. So yeah, it's still going. And I found that incredible. And the vape thing just blew my mind. I was like, oh man, I can't believe they put something like that in. And I just wouldn't have thought of it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing with, as I said, with Jesus becoming an old man all of a sudden, one of the other things with whodunits is that they're also really funny, or most of them are. And so you're trying to like work out a mystery that's well constructed, along with a plot that's well constructed, along with comedy that's well constructed. I have no idea how to juggle those balls, and the closest I've gotten is I have ran brief mystery storylines in tabletop role-playing games. You were part of one of them fairly recently, where it was the vampire murder thing. But I don't really try and give you too many like who it could have been. It's mostly just investigate it and find the one culprit I've planned. So it's much more like linear. It's like closer to playing something like LA Noire, where like LA Noire is. Have you ever played LA Noire?
I've played it briefly, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember. I feel like I got it on the Switch at some point, and also I may have got it on PSVR. Maybe
Didn't even realize it was on either of those platforms, but okay.
I mean, I might just be talking utter bollocks, but I believe those are what I had it on.
But with LA Noire, it's really, really clever the first time you play it. And if you ever play it again, you go, all this illusion of who it could have been. There's none of that's in there. Like, you can get the investigations wrong, but you can't really, like, just go completely down the wrong path and start investigating the wrong clues. Like, you're very much railroaded on the clues. It's just, do you believe the person you're interviewing or not, basically. And it's still a good game, but, like, it's not actually as complex as it feels the first time you're playing it. It's similar to most role-playing games, where most video games that have role-playing elements feel very broad and like they react to your decisions and such, like when you're playing them, and then you play them again or you see someone else play them or whatever, and you go, oh, actually, it's an illusion of choice. It doesn't actually matter what I do. But yeah, what was I going to say? But yeah, so LA Noire is much more kind of like linear in that sense, and the same is true with whenever I do little investigations in a tabletop role-playing game, because I'm not smart enough to go and come up with multiple culprits and put them all in front of the players, and also trust that the players have a good chance of finding the correct culprit, which is the other thing. But,
yeah, I think that there's definitely like varying degrees of like difficulty when it comes to things like that, because I mean, as you said, if you try and make something really like intricate, like you know, something like Midsummer Murders or something where there are multiple culprits and like they have all different motives and stuff, and it is just kind of difficult. Players, you know, wouldn't be able to get that most probably unless someone is an actual detective. But then obviously you also don't want to just make it way too easy. Like,
yeah.
I think trying to find that balance is quite a difficult thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some decently like pre-written adventures for tabletop role-playing games that do that, and when they're written for me, I can run them. But no, I'm not smart enough to write those myself.
The problems are when you think you've come up with something really good, really intricate, and then a player just asks you a question completely out the blue that you didn't think they would ask, and it just ruins the whole thing because they've suddenly just asked a question that means they've figured it all out instantly.
The other thing that's annoying with running stuff for players is that you can always go, I think I've worked out the group dynamic now. I think I know how they're going to react to this. So if I throw this scenario at them, they're going to react this way. And then you throw that scenario at them and then they don't react the way you were planning. You go, fuck.
Is that what you thought when I decided to just tell the group in Star Wars rather than lying to them?
No, that wasn't a big deal because you still went through with it. I did expect you to not try and fight when Dallo showed up because you were unarmed and like multiple armed people in the room with you. The fact you did, I went, okay, how can I get back to the scenario one? Oh, I just need to make sure that I capture Tommy. That's all I need to do. So like that was fine because, spoiler alert, I know we're in the middle of this adventure and therefore this might be peeking behind the curtain a little bit too much. If Tommy didn't get captured, how the fuck are you going to cure Tommy?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, like
at the time I was like, I mean,
because the plan is Gray gets captured, gets cured, and then you have to save him before worse stuff happens to him.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't get captured in the first place, he's just dying still, and you don't have the money to cure him. And you've already failed the other mission to try and cure him. So I was like, oh, I'm running out of options. So.
I mean, I think it was well played because obviously we got put in a position where it was either leave all of our friends just unconscious on the floor just to die, basically, while me and Zersai on our own decided to like go and try and save Tom. And it just wouldn't have worked. Like, you know, we'd already used up quite a lot of our stuff.
Points, yeah.
So it was good that we were in that position, because I feel like everything just fell into place at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, is when the fight was going on, I was like, ooh, if I gas the room, I can knock a bunch of people out. But the gas was not planned before that session. That was me going, what can I do? And it's, ooh, gas is a thing in Star Wars. I could gas the room. And then Tommy was like, as soon as the gas started to go off, Tommy was like, I'm going to grenade the window. And I went, you better fucking fail your DC check then. And I didn't intentionally make it so that it was unachievable, but I went, better make it a hard roll just to make sure that most people don't. Anyways, if you haven't watched it, Star Wars Leviathan, it's over on the channel PB Marsh on YouTube. We're going to stop talking about it because most people, it's probably the Venn diagram is a very small little.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you're watching this channel, you probably mostly come for all the nerdy shit. Chances are you probably like Star Wars. If you like Star Wars, you'd probably based. So, you know.
You froze your camera and your audio froze twice during that, and both times it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah, yours was doing that just before I started talking as well. I think Discord's fucking up.
We could try changing server real quick. We might still be on a server to appease Samo.
Maybe. I'm not sure what it's on. I have a feeling we might have changed it back, but
I have a feeling that I can't remember how to change the server location. Anyways, point is,
oh yeah,
watch how they see how they run. Looks like a good old time.
Yeah. Also watch Star Wars Leviathan.
Sure. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about before we get into any other stuff, and I know you watched a little bit of it at least, was the episode from Love, Death and Robots. We talked a little bit about Love, Death and Robots. Love, Death and Robots, good TV show, good old fun time. So if you don't know what it is, it's basically like a bunch of different shorts that are animated, and then it was indeed. I'm going to change it to automatic real quick. This might break stuff.
While you do that, if you can hear a lawnmower in the background, I'm sorry about that, but I can't really do anything. So if you do at any point, I apologize.
Fair enough. Yeah, so Love, Death and Robots is a bunch of animated shorts done by various different animation teams around the world, and they all just get compiled into a Netflix show. The basic premise is that each episode will have something to do with love, death, or robots. Which, if you think that's pretty broad, yes, it is. It basically means it's about anything, but like usually with sex or death or robots or a mixture of the above in it. So anyways, one of the episodes from season 3 called In Vaulted Halls Entombed, there was a video released, I believe yesterday, on Unreal's channel, because the entire short was done in Unreal Engine 5. And that kind of blew my mind, because it is literally, you know it's CGI when you're watching it, but it is literally photoreal CGI. Like, it's so fucking good. And the fact that that was done in a game engine is kind of mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part of it, is that it's done in a game engine. This is what games are going to be made with. And if games come out that are as good as that, we are in for a totally new generation of games that are just going to be mind-blowing. At least hopefully. I mean, they could still be very poorly written and executed, but you know, it's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah.
To see what they can actually do with it.
I mean, the thing is and it is worth saying just out of the gate, that obviously with a film made in Unreal, there is a big difference between that and a video game, which is that in a video game you are doing everything rendered as you're doing it. So if you turn the camera, the render engine has to like work out what you can and can't see, and obviously it's not, you should be able to, from my understanding how video games work, is that there is a circle basically around the player character or the camera that goes out quite far, and that's what can and can't be seen. So you have a render distance, right? So things behind you aren't invisible when you're not looking at them, but things far enough away are. But either way, you sometimes when you're playing video games, you notice textures pop in or enemies pop in or whatever because you're playing it, and the game is trying to basically keep everything behind the curtain that's supposed to be behind the curtain. But sometimes you get a peek behind the curtain because it doesn't do it properly, because it's trying to guess basically with a very clever algorithm. But obviously, when you're doing pre-rendered, you can make sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to look before you click render. That's the advantage of pre-render. So movies are always going to be a little bit different to video games. You can therefore potentially push the fidelity a little bit further than the video game, because on a video game, your computer has to handle it, whereas in a film, the computer that's rendering it has to handle it, and then once it's rendered, it's done. So there is obviously going to be a bit more fidelity than maybe video games currently can do. I would imagine like really high-end PCs might be able to achieve something similar to this, but I'm going to guess PS5 and whatever Xbox we're on now. I've completely given up trying to work out what the current Xbox is. Xbox. They probably wouldn't be able to achieve this in real time while playing. But nonetheless, it's still the same engine, so that's still really fucking impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when the next sort of generation of consoles gets released, I think that's when we're going to see like a massive increase, because obviously we've got a lot of new engines and stuff coming out recently that, you know, could be used to suit different games. I mean, obviously that's usually how it's always done. A lot of game devs use their own engines and stuff, but I mean, if you think about games like God of War, for example, if that was on a next gen, another, you know, the next gen console using something like Unreal Engine, you know, you're talking about how, you know, the circle only renders so far and then everything else is just, you know, as you move closer, whatever. I feel like a game like God of War, it is, even though it feels like a huge game, because, you know, you can look out and you can see like mountains and everything and like stuff off in the distance. Yeah, like in actuality, it's quite small. And I feel like if that was done in Unreal Engine or something along, you know, those lines, I feel like that would be the perfect game to use it for, because I think you probably could have everything rendered in a lot easier than a game that's more like way more open world, you know, like a game like Ark, which I've been playing a lot recently. You know, it is such a huge map that you look off in the distance and it's just kind of like blank because you just can't, like, it just can't render it in because it's just so huge and far away. But when it's more contained, I think those are the games that are going to really shine. And I can't wait for those types of games to start being made with it.
And it's worth saying as well, I think Unreal 5 is an amazing piece of technology. I mean, I'm not super into game development because it's too much for me. Like, I've dabbled and I've gone, this is for people way smarter than me. But I like looking at videos on the tech demos and stuff from time to time. And I remember when they revealed Unreal 5 and then they did the, I can't remember what the tech's called, but basically like the way that they can build worlds much more quickly in real time because they can basically segment out bits of the world. It's just like, it's really clever technology and it's really, really impressive. But it's not to say that we haven't had really good graphical fidelity recently. And one of the things that I'm really impressed by is if you look at something like The Last God of War or The Last of Us Part 2, even Uncharted 4, which is going back a couple of years, there's a lot of PlayStation 4 exclusives that are really fucking good looking, even to this day. Like, you look at them and you go, wow, that is really close to photoreal in real time. And all of those were made on PS4. And we're on PS5. And admittedly, there's not really been many games, if any, as far as I know, that have been exclusively PS5 and not PS4. I mean, Demon's Souls, I think, was exclusively PS5.
Oh dear.
The remake. But most games so far have still been being released on both platforms, which means that in part they are being developed to run on PS4, and then you'll get to a point where we're just looking at PS5. And you always get this with console generations, where the games that come out near the beginning of the console generation look good, but the ones near the end of the console generation look amazing, and you go, wow, you've pushed the technology so far. But part of that is also that they're just being made for that new generation. But I'm just really excited to see what they can achieve with a few years on this generation, let alone the next generation. But,
yeah, for sure. I mean, like, even, you know, God of War, one of my favorite games ever. You know, even when I first saw that, I was like, oh my God, this looks amazing. And then when I got my 4K monitor and I upgraded my version to the PS5, like, it was even better.
mhm.
I'm now imagining what that type of game could look like using like Unreal Engine 5 on a 4K monitor on a next gen console.
Yeah.
Like, that's madness to even think about what that could look like.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool where we're getting to with technology, and the fact that filmmakers are starting to use game engines. Because did you watch the full video, by the way, or did you just kind of like skim through it?
I just skipped through it.
Okay, so one of the really interesting points that one of the filmmakers who worked on this project says is that when you're doing a traditional CGI pipeline, you don't get to see the changes that you're doing until a little bit later. You basically have to go, all right, I'm good for the next render, let's go. That didn't look the way I wanted it to look, let's alter, because you're always working in something that's not the final visual, basically. But with real-time engine stuff with Unreal 5, you're building as you're going. So you start with something very, very basic, then you add on some more, and then you add on some more, and then you add on some more. But because it's real-time, and they say real-time, I'm assuming it's not running at like flawless 120 frames per second each time, but like they can like completely change something and they can fairly quickly see exactly what it's going to look like in camera when they click render. And that means that things become much more intuitive, where you go, this camera angle's not quite working, but if we just, and it feels much more like shooting live action is what they described it as. So if filmmakers are starting to use that sort of tool set more as well, that's really exciting. And Unreal has been being used for a while. It's what's used for all of the well, I don't know about all. I'm gonna walk back that statement I was gonna make. All of the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi stuff with the volume. I don't know whether the Batman use Unreal 5 on the volume, but that's what the Star Wars stuff does on the volume, is they use Unreal 5 to power those backgrounds. And, when you're looking at something that's live action, you can't tell. You can't tell that that's not really the background behind them. When I say that, there are some moments in some of the more recent ones where like just the composition doesn't play it as nicely. But with the Mandalorian, I've never been able to tell that those backgrounds are technically video game backgrounds. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's also a really good thing for I mean, I don't think it matters too much, but also it is a nice thing if games, in franchises like Star Wars and stuff like that, that does have, still that mindset of, oh, when a game releases, no one's really sure if it's canon or anything because, until Disney actually says it's canon, it's still a little bit iffy. And I feel like if we get to a point where, Star Wars games or something are, or animated shows or something are more photorealistic, I think even though there's still going to be a little bit of that, confusion and apprehension about it, I think a lot of people will kind of marry up the idea that, oh, okay, this looks and feels exactly like live action Star Wars, and they may just kind of assume that it is more canon.
yeah. I think the other thing as well is that I'm curious to see, now that the Star Wars IP is being shared amongst multiple companies, it's no longer EA exclusive, I'm curious to see whether more studios start using Unreal for the Star Wars games specifically, because Battlefront 2 is on Frostbite, which is a different engine. I want to say Fallen Order might be Unreal, though. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's Unreal. And And I'd be curious if more stuff uses Unreal, because that makes a lot of sense to use the same engine that the movie makers and TV makers are using, because then you can go, oh, do you want to share assets? Because they're made for the same engine. Like, we're literally using the same thing. Like, oh, you've got an X-Wing ready to go that's photo real for movies and TV shows? Cool. Can we just grab that for our video game, and vice versa? Like, that makes loads of sense, right?
Yeah, it gives the whole franchise that little bit of extra like cohesion between them.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, either way, really, really cool to see Unreal used on a show, and also I think it's really cool that they didn't announce it until months later, because I watched it and went, and to be clear, I think In Halls Entombed is not like the best looking one, because I think a lot of what I like from Love, Death and Robots is more stylistic than the photoreal ones. The photoreal ones are usually fine, but I love the stylistic, really like artsy Love, Death and Robot episodes. But like, it's still like gorgeous to look at, and I didn't for one moment think it was a video game engine. The fact that months later they went, oh, it was a video game engine, I'm like, whoa, that blew my mind, sort of thing. So I think they intentionally waited a few months before announcing that it was made on a video game engine, because you know when you watch like an Unreal or a Unity tech demo where they've made a short film or whatever on YouTube, and you go, oh, that's really cool for a video game engine, and then you're watching Love, Death and Robots, you find out that an episode you just watched is Unreal. That's kind of a different feeling. So
yeah, and I think also with Love, Death and Robots, or you know, stuff like other like anthologies of animation, like animated shorts and everything, when you've got so many different stylized episodes, like, especially when it's supposed to be animation, I think going from like a very unique and stylish choice of like drawing and animation to a more photorealistic live action feel, it almost just makes you feel like, why didn't they just do that in live action and just do it as something else? You know, it's like
to a certain extent, there are some which, like with this one, for instance, I'm totally fine with being CGI, because there's loads of stuff that would have to be CGI anyways if they were doing it live action. But there's one in particular that stands out to me from Love, Death and Robots Volume 2, which I can't remember the name of the episode, but it was the episode featuring Michael B. Jordan. And the basic premise, if memory serves, is that like his ship crash lands, and he makes his way to like a space, like a base on a planet somewhere that's all run down, and he gets attacked by a robot that's on like automatic coding or whatever, like it's just doing its programming, and so he's trying to basically survive this robot, and he's like stuck in this very small building, this very small sci-fi building with this robot that's hunting him. And it's beautiful to look at. Like, it is so photoreal that if you told me that some of those shots of Michael B. Jordan's face were actually live action and just had CGI backgrounds or whatever, I would totally believe you if you told me that Michael B. Jordan is sometimes live action in that short. That's how photoreal that short is. However, watching that, I went, but this is the sort of short film that you absolutely could shoot live action, and like the robot is being shot in ways which it could have been done practically or CGI, but just the robot could be CGI. Like, there is so little of this that needs to be CGI that, yeah, at this point I'm going, I mean, it's really impressive CGI, but why? Whereas something like in Halls Entombed, at least with that, I'm going, I could understand that this would actually be quite hard to shoot live action, and there would be a lot of visual effects anyways, so might as well just do the whole thing and show off, sort of thing. But either way, as I say, I the ones I tend to lean more towards in terms of visual style are the more stylistic ones. And that's kind of the case with video games as well. Like, I like photoreal looking video games, but I also really like, I feel like stylized video games will last longer than photoreal video games, because I've gone through so many moments in my life where I've seen a video game get announced, go, oh my god, that's photoreal, and then like 5 years later I'm like, that's not photoreal, what the fuck was I on? But you don't really feel that way about any stylized game ever. Like, it might age a little bit, but it still looks gorgeous because it's stylized.
I mean, look at the Borderlands franchise.
Yeah,
that is totally stylized, and like, it just, for me at least, I know some people just don't like the cartoony sort of feel of it, but as someone that does like it, it doesn't get old for me. And yeah, I think it's the same sort of thing, really. But I mean, there are games, you know, And I think there is definitely a place for photorealism in games, and I think that is especially more so when it's in games that incorporate like fantasy, for example.
Mm.
Again, another really good example of that is God of War. If that was totally photorealistic and it looked totally real, and you have like this giant world serpent that looks like it could just be sat outside your, front door and just like looming over you, that would be really fucking badass,
Mhm.
Because it it is then like that is immersive.
Mhm.
That adds to the immersion of the game. Whereas if it's something just like Call of Duty, where you're just like, oh well, these are just guys,
Well, I
you
think
know?
I think the flip side of that is that God of War is photo real, but it's not realistic looking. And what I mean by that is things like, and this is why I'm slightly worried about. I can't remember if it's a TV show or a movie, but they're making a God of War live action thing, and I'm like, I get that we have people playing superheroes who go on these ridiculous diets to look incredibly buff. I get it, but even Dwayne the Rock Johnson, at his fittest, couldn't look as godlike as Kratos. Like, there is something about the design of Kratos that looks beyond human in terms of how muscular and like perfect bodied he looks. But it doesn't feel it doesn't feel, when you're looking at it, it doesn't look like a cartoon, but it also doesn't look fully realistic. It is slightly stylized, but ever so slightly. It's playing that edge, and I think that really, really works. Whereas I'm not sure I'm ever going to see a live-action version of Kratos in a live-action God of War and go, I buy that as much as I bought it in God of War. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I see that. But you've kind of got me worried now that they're gonna cast The Rock as
They
Kratos.
better fucking not.
I still want Triple H. I think he's way too old for it now, honestly. But like, a few years ago, Triple H, bold with his huge beard, dude, he would have been perfect, and he wouldn't even really have had to have done that much acting, like with his personality. He's good at being grumbly and angry looking, and that's perfect for Kratos. Like,
I think Danny DeVito.
yes, I agree.
Also,
He has the godly figure.
purely because I just looked over at it, and it's the thumbnail. If they were doing Greek Kratos, John DiMaggio.
I'm not. I'm not sure about
He's
that.
kind of got the Greek look to him, and he's a good actor, and he can get buff. You can imagine him bald and painted white.
I'm not so sure about that one.
Okay. What about Swaris Rowan? I'm
Oh,
so
by the way, I
sorry.
looked it up and her name's like Saoirse or something.
Saoirse Rowan? Oh, that could be it, yeah. That sounds actually kind of familiar. I didn't mean John DiMaggio, fuck. Who did I mean?
Yeah, I was thinking like,
John
really?
Magdaleno? Is that his name? You know who I'm talking about.
Oh, Joe Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello, sure. Yes, him as Kratos, but specifically Greek Kratos.
Yeah, okay, no, I could imagine Joe Manganiello, yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean, John DiMaggio as the voice would be kind of funny.
I'd just be imagining fucking Jake from Adventure Time.
But anyways, what was I gonna say? I don't remember what I was gonna say. Either way, it's cool to see where game tech is at. I remember two recent moments where I was kind of jaw dropped by visual fidelity. Because some games do go for the more photoreal look because they're trying to feel more cinematic. Is when I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and I was walking through some woods trying to hunt a deer, and I suddenly noticed that I could see the sun going through my earlobe. I was like, Holy shit. I'd never realized that that's a thing that video games don't have, but yeah, wow. And the other one was in The Last of Us Part 2, although it is a pre-rendered cutscene, so they kind of got to cheat it a little bit. But you see a character take off their shirt, like fully. They don't cut around it. It's not like clipping through them or anything. It's just like a perfect simulation of someone's shirt being taken off. And I just went, whoa.
But I mean, it's those simple things that you may not notice, and like you don't notice it in every game because there is so much just in real life that you don't even notice, like day to day, because you just don't pay attention. And then when suddenly like they put that attention to detail in like a game or something, and you spot it, it's mind blowing because like you just don't think about that. And then you think, oh shit, that's actually so realistic.
It's one of the things I love about watching Corridor Crew and their like visual effects breakdowns is you start to appreciate some of the stuff that artists pay attention to get things to look realistic. And it's exactly what you said. It's these things that we subconsciously notice, but we don't consciously think about, but you do consciously notice if they're not there. And there's so much of that with artistry. I mean, and it's funny as well with video games how much we're used to not being realistic. Like how many video games do you put a weapon on your back and it just floats there? It's not attached to anything, but you just accept it because it's a video game. Like that's still a thing in modern video. It's not even, you don't even have to go back like 10 years. That's a thing from like last year in video games.
Yeah.
Like, or the other one, and not me trying to like just constantly scream about how good Naughty Dog is at this sort of stuff, but Naughty Dog is really, really good at this stuff, is like when you shoot something. And okay, we're pretty used to now, you should be able to shoot glass and glass breaks. We're pretty used to that being an idea in a video game. Most glass you shoot and it should break because it's a video game. But I remember seeing a video once, it was like the little details in Uncharted 4, and if you shoot a sandbag in Uncharted 4, the sandbag deflates as sand pours out of it onto the floor. You don't just get a bullet hole, like a little bullet hole sprite in a sandbag, you actually get reactivity to that, and you go, whoa, that's crazy. I remember when I was amazed by video games, like video game characters' clothes getting wet when you went into the water. I was like, whoa, this is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy how far we've come with video games, and I think it's going to be some crazy shit that's coming too.
Yeah. Can't wait to have a kid one day and be like, when I was your age, video games.
Show them something that's like 8-bit and they just lose their minds.
I mean, but that's the thing. We weren't even really around for 8-bit. Like, we are post 8-bit. That's how far it's moved in such a short amount of time. It's just, yeah, it's crazy. Anyways. What do we want to talk about next? We're at an hour.
I mean, maybe we should wait on Umbrella Academy until you finished.
I'll just say I'm enjoying it so far, and we can save the rest until media, I guess.
Yeah. The Boys.
Yeah, we haven't really talked much about The Boys. We just mentioned that we've been watching it, so let's talk about The Boys. How close are we to the end? It's like 2 episodes away from the end of the season, right?
I think it's the next episode is a finale.
Really? Holy shit! How are they gonna? That can't be right. There's too much left hanging.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not 100%.
You better be fucking wrong, mate. Final episode is this Friday. Holy shit.
Yep.
Holy shit. Wow. They've got a lot of stuff to wrap up.
I mean, they have another season or 2 at least, so
yeah, I just feel like Soldier Boy stuff is just getting started. But then Soldier Boy's probably going to be in season 4 with that logic, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah. It's The Boys is an interesting show because I can't think of many shows that consistently get better each season. Like, without a doubt in my mind, each season has been better than the last.
Definitely.
And it started pretty fucking strong, like in season 1. But it's just nothing is ever boring about it. Like, there's never been a scene that I've been like, oh, this is dragging on a bit or anything like that, or even a plot line. It's all been good. And yeah. I'm trying to think of other stuff to say that's not spoilerific. I think I haven't read the comics in a long, long time. I'm also not 100% convinced that I've finished the comics. Do the comics end in the White House? That's what I'm going to say. Is that the final, like, story? Or is there stuff after that? Because I've definitely read up to the White House. I can't remember much beyond that, if there is anything beyond that.
Not sure if it ends at the White House. I know it. I'm pretty sure it ends with 2 characters at the end, not at the White House.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm not even sure myself if I've finished it.
Okay.
Because I've seen stuff from it and I'm like, I don't remember this.
But either way, what I have read about it from years ago, I feel like what the Boys TV show does really, really well is it keeps the spirit of the comics, but it also improves upon the comics significantly. Because I think what the comics did a lot of, and some of it works and some of it doesn't, is it just does stuff for shock value some of the time. And I feel like the show doesn't really do that. There is shocking stuff, but I've never really felt like anything that's in the show has been there just to shock the audience. It's also had a further purpose, so to speak. So
yeah, I mean, like, a lot of the stuff that you see of the soups, you know, it's often like the shock value stuff is often like the soups just doing appalling shit, and that is just to further, like, basically prove Butcher's point in that they're all terrible pretty much, you know, except for, you know, the 2 characters that are part of the Boys, so Starlight and Kimiko, the female. Like, they're really the only 2 that we see that aren't total jackasses. You know, obviously there are a few other characters that are introduced that aren't totally bad, but for the most part they either die off very quickly, or, you know, they're just kind of inconsequential to the story.
yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that is shown of, like, the soups is to just reinforce the fact that they are mostly all terrible people, and, you know, it kind of makes you feel like, well, Butcher kind of has a point, you know, they need to stop, they need to be stopped. And so, yeah, like, I've never really felt like, oh, that was, like, just unnecessary, because I always just think that was fucking awful for, like, even if a soup does something terrible and they don't even mean to, it's also just like, well, they just have too much power.
Yeah.
And by doing stupid shit, they win stupid prizes. You know, like, it's...
I mean, a prime example is that, spoilers alert for the first 5 minutes of episode 1 of season 1, and the trailer for season 1. It's really not a spoiler. A train runs through someone. That happens right at the beginning of the show. A train is just sprinting at full speed, and he accidentally runs through someone and explodes them. And he's not really remorseful about it. And, you know, he's forced to apologize because it's a PR thing and what have you. And you go, oh, well, what a fucking asshole. But beyond that, a lot of what he's done is not awful human being. It's just fucking asshole, basically. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
Like, it's inconsiderate, it's not caring about other people, it's unempathetic, but he's not evil. There are evil characters in The Boys, but so many of the awful things that happen. I mean, I would say, for instance, the Deep is a significantly worse human being than A-Train. A-Train's still not a great person, but he's not, like, vindictively evil to people. He's just a dick who has superpowers and has never really faced consequences for his actions, and therefore doesn't give a shit until season 3, where he has started to face consequences. And I think that arc that they've done with him in season 3 is really, really good. But it's interesting that not all of them are just like, I'm not trying to give A-Train a free pass. I'm trying to, like, tread carefully. He's
I
not
totally
a good human
understand
being,
what you mean.
but like
I totally get it. I mean, it's, you know, it's like someone. It's literally just the fact that he is someone that has power or is in power. Take away the fact that he has superpowers. It's just like if you were working at a company and a higher up just treated like their subordinates like shit just because like they have the power, and that's just kind of the way they are as a person. They are just an asshole, you know. They are inconsiderate and don't really think about how their actions, you know, affect other people. And it's like if they make a decision at the top and that somehow affects, you know, all his subordinates and, you know, down the hierarchy, he's only really thinking about what's happening at the top. He doesn't care about what's happening at the bottom. You give him superpowers,
what's the natural progression from that? And that's what I really like, is that I think sometimes you hear The Boys talk about, and people kind of pitch it as, oh, it's what if the superheroes were actually supervillains? They're not supervillains. It's the natural progression of what if all these famous, powerful people that we have in our world had superpowers, and therefore people couldn't control them as much as they're already barely controlled. Like, A-Train's kind of, I'm sorry, I'm going to call him out right now on the internet, don't want to start drama, but he's basically Jake Paul. He's basically Jake Paul if you gave him super speed. Like, he's that sort of level of human being. And then you have people who are sexual assaulters, and you have people who are murderers, and, you know, there is a tier list of worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But it starts with the very normal sort of level of arseholery that rich and powerful people have, like Jake Paul, where it's just, you're just kind of a dick who's also incredibly rich, and therefore the fact that you're a dick hasn't held you back in life because you're already incredibly rich and powerful. Meanwhile, if I'm a dick, like Jake Paul, I'm really going after Jake Paul, whatever, then there are consequences for my actions, and I don't get anywhere good in life, basically. But him, he doesn't have to worry about that, so therefore he doesn't, and therefore he's a dick.
And I think that just, like, the fact that it is kind of in that grey area, it's not black and white. I think that is, it says so much about the way the characters are written. Because, I mean, even A-Train, you know, like not A-Train, sorry, even the Deep, like, he did something truly awful. And I mean, like, without spoiling anything in this latest season, you know, over the last couple of seasons, he, you know, you get to see more of his character and kind of like why he did what he did, and like a lot of people start feeling like sympathy almost, you know, and like empathizing with him, and like seeing that he now knows what he did was wrong, but then also not, you know, like he's a very complicated character. I think, but at the same time, it's hard to like straight up hate him because he has made certain improvements, but then he kind of like slips again, and you're just like, oh, this, like, because it's the same as in real life. Like, there are people like that want to change, but they just have certain setbacks, you know. It's like an alcoholic, they go to AA and then maybe something happens in their life, they relapse, but that doesn't make them like.
I do think what the Deep did is unforgivable, but I think what you're saying is that what the show does, and funnily enough, I know that you didn't enjoy it, and I don't know how far you got through it, but I think Jessica Jones season 1 did a similar thing where it's someone does this unforgivable thing, They do an absolutely categorically unforgivable thing, and you are not supposed to forgive them, but you also get given context as to what made them that person. That's not an excuse, but you see what they have gone through, the cycle of abuse that they've gone through, and you get a little bit of understanding, and it's that uncomfortable level of, oh, I still don't forgive you, but I also empathize a little bit with you.
Exactly.
And that's really, it's a really uncomfortable place to be in, but I like media that does that. Again, I don't think that the media is trying to make you forgive that character, but I think what it's saying is that abuse is often secular.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not to say that abuse is ever okay in any form, shape or form, but if we understand why abuse happens, then maybe we can get professionals to then stop that from happening in the future by giving people therapy and such. Like, people should go to therapy if they need it, and a lot of people do.
And it is a very difficult thing as well, which I think they are kind of exploring as well, is that, like, with the Deep, for example, you know, he did this unspeakably, like, horrible thing, and absolutely it's unforgivable. But at the same time, if that person, you know, is remorseful and they totally try to change their life to, you know, move forward and become a better person, it's difficult to think about, because on the one hand you're like, well, that was a terrible fucking thing for them to do, so they don't really deserve to move forward. But at the same time, if they really are remorseful and try to change their life, why shouldn't they get a second chance? And as you said, it's that uncomfortability, because as a person that hasn't experienced that, it's like you almost don't know how to react to it. It's like,
Yeah,
again, you empathize, but like you don't, like you can't forget what that person did.
it's one of those interesting things as well, because, and the Deep kind of goes on this arc, and then he kind of comes back to the main fold, but his story arc goes with him basically being outcast for what he did, and then ending up in a completely different area of America. And it's this interesting idea as well, which is that if you did something unspeakable, you're punished for it or whatever, and then you go to a completely different area of the world, and you're trying to make amends by being a better person. No one who meets you as that new person would ever know what you did. Like, you know, let's say I murdered someone and I got away with it. Or I didn't. Maybe I was found guilty, but I got out on good behavior. Whatever. The point is, I'm now free, and no one's hunting me. And I go and live in Australia. Unless someone finds the news article where it's like, Peter Marsh murdered someone, if I've changed my name or whatever, no one's ever going to know that I murdered someone, and I can live in relative peace. And that's a weird thing as well, is that, you know, if someone is being a better, and I don't think the Deep is being a better person, I think the Deep hasn't had his arc of actually becoming a good person yet, but A-Train is starting to become a slightly more empathetic character at this point, and I'm interested to see where they go going forward with him based on what's happened in the most recent episode. I'm very much trying to talk around what's happened with him. But yeah, it's this case of, yeah, if someone does actually change their life and starts living as a better person, and no one knew, like, it's I don't know, it's weird. It's hard to talk about. Just, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore.
Yeah, and again, I think that speaks to how well these characters are written, because, as I said, it's not black and white. And I think a lot of the characters, especially like some of the boys in the comics, they are just kind of there to be side characters to Butcher and Huey's relationship almost. And I mean, the fact that throughout all the comics, you know, Kimiko is literally just called the female. The show does a much better job of actually exploring each of the characters and like making you actually you know, attached to them.
Well, I think in the comics, most of the characters are actually caricatures, whereas in the TV show, no one really feels like a caricature. I mean, there's a couple of Love Sausage, I would say, is probably a bit of a caricature. I'm not sure Love Sausage has been given depth yet, but most characters that are actually like, you know, regulars or stars of the show have been given depth, whereas my memory in the comics is it's basically Homelander, Huey, Starlight, and Butcher are basically the 4 characters, and then you have caricatures around them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Love Sausage is ever going to get that depth. I think they've sidelined him, but but I mean, you know, like, there are still caricatures like Love Sausage in the show, but that is just for like comedic relief, basically, or usually just to show how like the main characters treat other people.
But all of the boys and all of the 7 and then all the other characters directly relating to those groups have been given actual depth. Like even Soldier Boy has been given depth in this season.
Yeah. And I just think that's great because, you know, you do get to see all these different stories play out. You get to learn more about the characters and like why they are the way they are. And it also really helps to differentiate them because, as you said, like, you know, there are the assholes and then there are just the straight up evil characters. And I feel like it would be totally different if all of the Supes were just straight up evil, because at that point it's almost like, well, they really all just deserve to die and whatever. And it really does prove Butcher's point.
Yeah.
And like by giving them different stories and everything and making some of them just assholes that, you know, almost just like make mistakes and have let the power go to their head, you can see other characters like Homelander that are just like straight up batshit insane and like purely evil and do what they want because they want to do it. And like you can really tell like, oh well, okay, these other characters aren't as bad as him. They're still like really bad, but also there are clearly worse things out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting character study at the end of the day, and I think that's what makes it so enjoyable is that it is character studies. Like even Homelander is like almost the definition of pure evil, and then they throw in a Nazi in season 2, and Homelander's repulsed by her. So when he finds out that she's a Nazi and she keeps on going on about, you know, the pure race and everything, and he's like, no, not that. Like, he's not repulsed by her, that's the wrong word, but like he's like, oh, I'm not into all of that, you know.
Yeah, it's almost just like he doesn't care. Like it's almost as if that is below him.
I don't think it is. I just think he's like, oh, I can just. It's almost that I can fix her mentality that people have sometimes when they watch a character on TV. They're like, but I could fix her even though she's a piece of shit or he's a piece of shit. But like, I don't think it's beneath him. I think he actually genuinely doesn't like the whole Nazi part to her. But he's like, but that's not a big deal.
I think the reason I believe that he does think it's beneath him is because we've seen that he thinks of himself as just as a god, like totally above everyone else. And like obviously she was trying to herd sheep into, you know, her own beliefs and everything, whereas I feel like Homelander doesn't really care about that type of thing because he thinks he's so above everyone else that like having a shared belief doesn't really matter, as long as everyone like
loves him
and pays attention to him. Nothing else matters.
On a quick side note as well, I just want to mention I found out this recently, and I think it's a cool little detail. If you don't know, the actor, I can't remember the actor's name, but the actor who plays Homelander, along with a couple of other actors, Anthony Starr, there we go. He wears a muscle suit under his costume. Like his muscles are fake, basically. And it's not obvious when you're watching the show, but like that it's a fact. Apparently Jensen Ackles was told that he had to beef up for the role, and he worked out like crazy and dieted like crazy. When he showed up, like loads of the cast members took the piss out of him because he'd actually beefed up for the role. And Anthony Starr was apparently like, oh, you could have just like asked him to sew muscles into your suit. But then I saw a comment saying, well, it's kind of cool because it means that Soldier Boy even though he's a piece of shit, Soldier Boy is a more authentic era of superhero, where like he actually like we found out that some of the stuff he did was fake, but he did still do some heroic stuff. Whereas at the point that we're at in The Boys, Vought has existed for a long time and they've created superheroes and whatever, but it sounds like they started off being a little bit more genuine, but now it's basically Hollywood where it's just this machine of money making and that's all they care about. And so like Homelander is fake in a way that Soldier Boy isn't. And I'm like, that's actually kind of a cool detail. But or someone was just an asshole to Jensen Ackles and told him to work out for no reason.
Yeah, no, I did see that, and I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really cool to see Homelander sitting naked and just seeing like how like small he is compared to with the muscle suit on, and like especially knowing that, you know, he is as strong as he is, but he just doesn't kind of look like it, and it's almost just funny to think that he believes he needs to look more muscular almost to like get the fans and everything.
I hadn't even thought about the idea that it could be a muscle suit within the world of The Boys. I just thought of it like a behind the scenes thing. But yeah, it could be that Homelander as a character has asked for a muscle suit.
He's always wearing it as well.
Yeah.
So anytime anyone sees him, he's in that suit.
Yeah, very true. But yeah, it's a good old time. I think it's probably one of my favorite TV shows on air at the moment.
For sure, yeah. Every time there's a break, I'll look forward to it. Like,
well, it's funny. I
time.
kind of almost forget about it when it's not on air, and then it comes back. I'm like, oh, I'm so fucking excited for the new season, sort of thing.
I'm kind of like that with the Umbrella Academy, I must admit.
I'm very much like that with Umbrella Academy as well, which I thoroughly enjoy Umbrella Academy. It is on a lower caliber to The Boys for me. Like, I really enjoy it, but The Boys is just a step above.
Yeah, so. No, I totally agree. Like, there have been some episodes of Umbrella Academy that have been, like, really great. Not necessarily this season, because obviously without spoiling and getting too much into it, I think this season was kind of slow in a lot of places, and they kind of, like, backtrack and kind of go over things. But in like the last couple of seasons, there have been like some really fucking cool moments that I think sometimes outshine The Boys, but it's just not consistent enough. Whereas The Boys is just always on it, you know?
I think a really prime example of where I'd compare the two as well, though, is Umbrella Academy has some really awesome musical bits. And so does The Boys, to be fair. I think Umbrella Academy more consistently has cool musical bits, but but The Boys does have them sometimes. But recently, Umbrella Academy Season 3, Episode 1, more or less starts with a musical number. It's like a big dance scene to a popular song, and it feels almost a little bit like a callback to in Season 1 when they were all dancing to I Think We're Alone Now. But there's a distinct difference between them. And The Boys also had a musical number recently with a big dance number. And the difference is that in The Boys and in Umbrella Academy Season 1, the musical/dance number is also a character moment. It tells you about the characters and where they are. The musical number in the opening of Umbrella Academy Season 3 is just for fun and to show off a character's superpower, but there's no actual meat to it. It's just a big fun dance number, and that's fine. But compare that to the scene in The Boys or the scene in Umbrella Academy Season 1, where it's fun and there's also purpose and you know there's a point to it beyond just this will be entertaining for 3 minutes or whatever.
I disagree, but
Okay.
I can't say anything on the matter because I would have to bring up a point that comes later in the season.
You're going to tell me that Diego's dream was to be a musical star? Is that what you're going to tell me?
I mean, I can say this without spoiling it, but I can't back it up with what I want to say.
Okay.
But that is what Diego hallucinated himself.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so that is what he wanted to happen, almost.
Okay. If they back it up with a point, then I will maybe retract that statement. But at the moment, it's like, oh, this is a fun 3-minute dance sequence that I'm enjoying, but there's no point to it. And then compare that, as I say, to the one in The Boys, where I was like, this is fun, and also this is telling me exactly what's going through a character's head. So
Yeah, I didn't really understand it until later on, but yeah, it is what Diego at that point in time, like, kind of wanted, you know, which I think is telling because obviously he's always been kind of a bit of a hard man sort of character, vigilante, you know, all about fighting and everything. And in that one moment when they were about to fight, you get to see that actually he didn't want to fight. He would have preferred to have danced.
fair enough.
Which I think is yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's not as in depth as stuff like the first season and the rest, but like especially seeing his character progression through this season, it does make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, as I say, I'm still enjoying it thoroughly though. I'm 2 episodes in, but it's literally like Umbrella Academy for me is like an 85 out of 100, and The Boys is like a 95 out of 100. So they're still really fucking good, but yeah. Do you want to talk about spoilers specifically of The Boys, or do you think that's kind of... I'm not sure. The thing is, I'm almost like there's too much to try and compartmentalize.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really know at this point, without seeing the finale, what we'd get out of talking about spoilers almost.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because, like, I think it's all going to come together at the end, and most of the stuff that we've already talked about, we've skirted around what actually happened, but we talked about the poignancy of it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we just wait until the finale and then we go into like full spoiler mode and just discuss the entire thing.
Sounds good to me. Particularly because we're literally a week away. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Umbrella Academy? No, Umbrella Academy. Stranger Things?
Yeah, I reckon we can talk about Stranger Things. How long have we been going, actually?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
We can not do a deep dive and then maybe try and get some more people together to do a roll for insight, but we can just talk generally about it, kind of like we just did for The Boys.
Yeah, I think there is one moment in particular, though, that I would like to go into spoiler territory for.
Do you want to jump straight into spoilers, or...?
Let's just talk about it generally first, and then we'll just do like maybe a couple of spoiler points.
So Volume 2 just dropped, I want to say, on the 1st of July, wasn't it?
I can't remember, honestly.
So. It was sometime in July, and we're on the 4th.
Yeah.
So in the last 4 days, it dropped. What did you think about the last 2 episodes and the season as a whole?
Incredible. It's definitely my favorite season, like, by far. I think it just, like, all the different, well, I say all the, you know, extra couple of characters that were added to, like, the sort of main 2 groups, I loved. And I just thought, like, I've been seeing a lot recently that there are certain, like, storylines and stuff that people were bored by and just didn't really care about. So, like,
I've heard that apparently one user on Twitter, because I saw a news article about this, apparently one Twitter user forwarded through Hopper's story arc this season.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one.
Why would you, like, even if it bored you, why would you skip through it, you fucking moron?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I do not understand why people don't like that. I was looking forward to each of those moments. Like, I've been looking forward to seeing Hopper since last season so much, and I thought, like, everything with the 3 the 3 main characters that we've seen before, I was looking forward to each moment. I thought they were all really interesting to watch.
I think it's fair and valid to say that maybe they could have done the Hopper stuff quicker, and the same with the Jonathan, Mike, and Will stuff. There are certain story arcs I think could have had less time spent on them, and therefore potentially the season have been shorter. But I understand why they're structured the way they are, which is for all of them to have a cool moment in the final episode where everything is kind of happening all at once. So I get it, but also without going into too many spoilers, you could have chopped off a decent chunk of the beginning of Hopper's story. We'll talk about it more in spoilers, I guess. You could have but you could have chopped off a decent chunk of the beginning and kind of picked his up halfway through, and you wouldn't have lost a lot of meat from Hopper's story, because most of the meat is in the second half of his story. But the result is, if you jumped in whenever Hopper's reintroduced, like episode 1 or episode 2 of this season, with the middle of his story, then by the end of the season, he's not doing what he's doing. Anyways. So
I think, I don't know. I personally feel like everything that we saw as a part of Hopper's story, which, you know, I count also as like Joyce and Murray and whatever. I think every part of that is important, especially for the final episode, because I feel like a lot of character progression pays off there.
Yeah.
And they introduced a new character called Yuri. And I think seeing him from the beginning, like, definitely, I mean, he was a very integral part to it.
That's true.
And
okay. I'll allow it. I'll take back my. I'll explore what my statement was going to be before, but yes, actually, Yuri adds to it a lot.
He's definitely integral to it, and like, I think that's also important as to why we see the beginning bit with Hopper, because Yuri is integral to what they were trying to do, and because he didn't play his part, that is why they ended up where they were. So I thought the whole thing was interesting. I personally felt like the stuff with Mike and Will and Jonathan and Argyle carried that for me. Like, I genuinely think it would have been quite boring if they hadn't had that character there. I still enjoyed it, but like, it was definitely.
I think for me that group's story, and I think I said this when we briefly talked about it on a previous podcast, is the most season 3 feeling chunk of the show. And what's nice about season 4 is it appeals to the season 1 aspects, the season 2 aspects, and the season 3 aspects, as well as bringing its own aspects. So no matter which season was your favorite, you've got something to kind of like appeal to you. And personally, particularly when I first watched it, I didn't love season 3. I've come back around on it a bit more, having rewatched it, where it's like it's much higher than it used to be, but it's still my least favorite of the seasons. But I think my problem with that arc is that it kind of tumbles in the middle a bit. It starts off really strong and it ends really strong. There's a middle section where I'm like, this isn't really doing much for me. I mean, it's comedic relief, which is fine, but it's not really doing much for me. And I think that became particularly noticeable when in Volume 1, I think the last 2 episodes don't feature that group at all of Volume 1, because they kind of just run out of steam. And then they come back in Volume 2 and they've got the steam again, and then it's really good. So I just wish that they had maybe like done that a little bit better. And so because of that, I think coming out of Volume 1, I was like, Argyle's fine as comedic relief, but he doesn't add that much to it other than comedic relief. I loved him in Volume 2. Some of his, like, the whole end bit with that group is made so much better by Argyle's inclusion, because everyone else is used to what's going on except for Argyle, and his fucking stoner comedy just adds to it so much, because it's new rather than being the same thing again for the 100th time or whatever. So
I also think introducing that character to be like Jonathan's real only friend did wonders for Jonathan. I've hated him since like the first season. I think he was the most boring fucking character. Honestly, I don't think, like, I just didn't like him at all. I thought, like, especially when he was first introduced, he was a creep.
I can't find it, but somewhere I have a Funko Pop of Jonathan that a friend gave me.
But like, he was a creep in the beginning. Like, Steve was bad, sure, he was a bully, but like but Jonathan was just straight up creep. And like, okay, like, he got better, but after that he was just a bit of a wet flannel. I don't really think he added much to it at all, really.
I strongly disagree. I do agree that the creep thing, it never to the point of ruined his character for me, but I dislike that that's an element of his character, is that he did that in season 1. I do think that they've redeemed him from that, and he doesn't start off as a creep, and he doesn't end season 1 as a creep, but there's a middle section where I was just like, ooh, couldn't have found a better way for him to end up with a photo of the Demogorgon in season 1 than him peeping Tomming. But I think, and this might be because I've got older brothers and you're a single child, I have loved Jonathan ever, like, the whole time, particularly his relationship with Will. He is what every big brother should try and be. Not necessarily in terms of personality, but in terms of how he treats his brother and looks out for his brother. That's what every big brother should try and do. So that's kind of always endeared me to him. And so in a way, him being a bit of a stoner and not seeming to give a shit about anything at the beginning of this season, I didn't love, because it felt like they'd taken this thing that I really quite liked about Jonathan and gone, what if he went the route of one of your brothers in the same era of his life where he became a stoner and stopped giving a shit about anything? What if we did that to one of your characters, Pete? And I went, oh, I don't love this. But they kind of bring it back in volume 2, where they show that even though he is all of those things, he's also still all the things he was before. And I think that paid off really, really nicely.
And that's why I liked it, because as I said, I felt like throughout the last few seasons, he just didn't really contribute anything. Like, he was that big brother to Will, but like, that was really the only thing that he was doing.
He took a metal stool to his spine for Nancy. What the fuck are you talking about?
He just had such a boring personality. Like, compared to all of the other characters.
He is the most adult of the younger cast, because he's kind of had to be. And yeah, that can make him a bit more boring. I get it.
And like, because it was the same thing with him. There wasn't really much progression since when he first got with Nancy. Like, that first bit where it was kind of like the love triangle thing in the first season. Like, that was the most interesting thing about the character for me up until season 4.
Yeah.
And then season 4 introduces him as a character that has lost his way a bit. And it is a changing character for him to be a little bit more interesting, you know, like he isn't I never got the feeling that he was getting stoned just to get stoned.
No.
I always feel like it was because he had a lot of stress, you know, he had a lot of stuff going on with Nancy, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers as much as possible. But like,
and also just in general, boys had a lot of shit happen to him.
Exactly. And so, like, you know, I always felt like it was an outlet for him. And Argyle wasn't ever presented as just the dumb stoner friend that just didn't give a shit about anything.
Yeah.
Very early on, you see him having these like sort of deep talks with Jonathan, and when you would imagine him to just kind of like space out and not pay any attention, he does. He does pay attention, and he actually, you know, like addresses the situation and tries to help. And that dynamic between the characters really, as you said, endeared me to Jonathan, because like it just gave him that something a little extra. You could kind of see the headspace he was in and where he wanted to go but wasn't quite so sure on how to get there.
But I think like, if he didn't have a certain scene in volume 2, I think none of that would have worked for me. And so coming off of volume 1, none of that had worked for me. And then volume 2 made it work for me. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that it needed that element of, oh, he is still paying attention. He does still give a shit. And yeah, he literally says basically that exact thing. And you're like, okay, cool. You haven't just completely kind of changed his character to a different trope, basically.
Yeah, and that's why I actually like him this season, because not only did I felt like he just interacted more with a lot more of the different characters as well. Like in that group specifically. Like in that group, like Argyle and Jonathan were my two favorite characters. Like I didn't really care about Mike or Will or anything. And like,
that's kind of because Mike's had nothing to do until this season, since season 1.
Whoa, yeah. And so like to see that dynamic and to then see like how that is affecting, Will, for example, I thought it was really good, and it actually really made me like the character. I think they did an excellent job with it this season.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I didn't want to dislike him over the last few seasons. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna actively hate this guy
I'm
for
just
no
gonna
reason.
skip through Jonathan's scenes.
Yeah, I didn't skip through him or anything, but I was just like, I just wish that if he's gonna be a part of the main cast, he has a little bit more personality and a bit more to do. And they delivered that for me this season, and I'm really glad they did.
Yeah. I think as well, going back to Mike, I saw post Volume 1 some people criticizing a particular scene with Finn Wolfhard's performance. It's a scene where he's talking to Eleven. It's quite an emotional scene where Eleven is being quite emotional and Mike is being quite shut off. And people were like, damn, Millie Bobby Brown acting circles around Finn Wolfhard. He's just phoning it in at this point. And I was like, I don't think he is. Like, he was probably one of, if not the best actor in season 1 of the children actors. And to be fair, he got given the most meat in season 1 as well. But like, and then I started to see this thing where people were saying like he's basically been phoning it in for the last 3 seasons. I was like, I don't agree with that either. But his character has taken a bit of more of a backseat. He's very much the leader in season 1, and he's not as much in the subsequent seasons. So, and like it's progressive. Like in season 3, he's like, not really in control because not too much of it, but a lot of it is focused on him trying to like sort out his and Eleven's relationship and not him sorting out the party, so to speak. But I never felt like it was him phoning it in. I never felt it was bad writing. I always felt it was intentional. And again, in Volume 2, they confirm that all and they validate all of that. And, as much as like Volume 2 was released 6 weeks or whatever after Volume 1, there is no way that any of this was reactionary to people's reactions to season 1 or to Volume 1, meaning that it was always planned from the beginning. So
yeah, and I totally agree. I've been watching it with Samo, and I watched it with my other friend with Samo the other day, and yeah, they kind of said the same thing, like his actor's shit and everything. And I was like, I mean, there have been a few times where I think he doesn't necessarily have any personality showing through, even with other characters.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I never really took that to think that Finn Wolfhard is a shit actor.
No.
I just kind of thought about it from the point of view of like where the character is in the series, and I think I'll talk about this more when we get into spoilers, because there's definitely something that I want to say about that.
I mean, I think as well, what people need to bear in mind about Mike's characterization is he, in terms of like how much he cares at 11 and how central he's made 11 to his life. This is the kid who called her on his radio 300 and something days in a row between season 1 and season 2. Like, I can't remember exactly. It's nearly a year worth of calls on his radio that he does every single day to this girl. Like, and not getting anything back, believing that she might be dead or whatever. That is going to have a toll on someone, and therefore, whether this is a good thing or not, and I would say that anyone who is in love with someone, that person they're in love with shouldn't be all there is to their life. But it does feel like in Mike's head, his number one priority is always 11, no matter what. And it maybe shouldn't be. It should also be all of his other friends and his family and such like. But that's how it's always felt. So with him feeling lower energy when he's not with 11 or whatever, that's always felt intentional to me. So, yeah, I don't know. And again, it feels intentional because there are things he doesn't pick up on in both season 3 and season 4. I'm skirting around spoilers here, so I'm not going to say anything more. There are things he doesn't notice, things he is not consciously aware of because he's so self-involved. And you can dislike a character being self-involved, but if it's intentional, then it's intentional, So, I don't know. What else? Everything in Hawkins, though, It's fucking phenomenal the whole way through. Like, literally couldn't criticize a single thing about the Hawkins story arc at all. Like, there are little niggles I can have with all the other story arcs, but the Hawkins stuff, fucking perfection. Exactly what I wanted from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I will say, I really liked Volume 2. I do think... I don't know how I feel about it being released separately from Volume 1, and I think Netflix or the Duffer Brothers might try and play it as them intentionally wanting there to be a gap. I'm not sure it was intentional, because did you hear that apparently when Volume 2 went live on Netflix's servers, it had incomplete VFX shots, and they had to re-release it with completed VFX shots a couple of hours later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is also an awful precedent for already an overworked industry, which is VFX artists, where they normally have extremely tight deadlines. Just delay the release of the show. But that kind of almost solidifies in my head that Volume 2 was only released as a Volume 2 because they ran out of time to finish their VFX shots. So they went, oh, well, we'll release a Volume 1 and then give us an extra couple of weeks to finish it off, and then they didn't manage to finish it off in that couple of extra weeks anyways, so... But, yeah, so I'm not sure how I feel about it being split. I mean, it's fine. It didn't detract from my enjoyment, but potentially some of those criticisms I had coming out of Volume 1, I wouldn't have had if they just released the whole thing. At the same time, maybe you should just watch it. Maybe you should just wait until something's finished before criticizing it. That's also a valid point. You shouldn't try and like go, why is Reva doing the stuff that Reva's doing in Obi-Wan Kenobi until they reveal why Reva's doing the things that she's doing. Like, that's a valid thing that I've criticized people for saying, is complaining about a weekly release TV show before it's finished. But yeah, I don't know.
Spoilers?
We can talk about spoilers.
Okay, we are going into spoiler territory. If you don't want spoilers, skip to the end. I'm sure people put timestamps in, or
just this once. I'm not going to. No, there's chapters down below.
So yeah, spoilers. So I just want to, while I remember it, I want to actually talk about the mic thing, and I think, like, the way I was looking at it was, you've got this character who started off with this large group of friends who find this girl, she becomes his girlfriend, and obviously you get to see that, yeah, he dedicates a lot of his time thinking about and, wanting to be with her. And, he explains that he was worried because, he thought that she'd eventually reach a point where she wouldn't need him because he didn't really have much to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, as you said, very telling of the character, because maybe he did take more of a backseat because he had these self-doubts about himself. Like, if I don't have something to offer to her, I don't have anything to offer myself. Maybe I just won't bother, almost. Like, I just won't get involved as much.
Yeah.
And you've also got to think about the fact that, especially in this season and also last season, the group is split up. Like, and not even in the sense of like, oh, they split up into small groups where they do this thing. I mean, totally split up. I mean, in the beginning, we get to see that Lucas is trying to play
B-ball,
or is trying to get into the B-ball team, and is therefore spending less time with his friends.
Cancelled D&D last minute, the absolute fucker.
Yep.
Unforgivable. Lucas is my least favorite character now. I'm kidding.
Max split up with Lucas, and Mike and Dustin were playing D&D most of the time, and Max wasn't interested. So she was kind of more of a loner and didn't spend much time with them at all.
But also on top of that as well, just to add in, and Dustin's got this very close friendship with Steve, and it seems like he's got a very close friendship with Eddie. I almost forgot his name and called him Joe. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, so Dustin is like way more closer to Eddie than Mike, and I feel like Mike just feel like he's getting sidelined there a bit. Obviously, 11 and Will moved to a different, like, I'm assuming, state.
Yeah, California.
So he doesn't get to see them like hardly at all, basically. And obviously, they're living different lives. Maybe meeting other people, or at least in his mind. Plus he's being lied to by 11, so he's off thinking that she's living this great life, and that obviously also adds to the self-doubt, because it's like, well, she's getting on, she's meeting new people, she's getting new friends. What if she leaves me for that other life? And Will also, I'm sure, obviously we find out that Will was pretty much thinking about Mike the whole time and didn't want to lose that friendship, but he thought that that's the way it was going because they couldn't see each other, and obviously Mike was way more interested in 11. Mike never really had any sort of relationship with like Steve, not even really Nancy that much. They were often quite like apart most of the time. So all of his friends are kind of doing different things, and he probably feels totally isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, sure, he plays D&D with Dustin, but as we said, like, Dustin was way closer, and he probably just felt like he was tagging along almost. And so, yeah, you can understand that he's got a lot of mixed feelings, and he maybe doesn't feel like he is part of that group anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so he becomes way more reserved and has all of these mixed emotions about, his relationship with 11 and with the rest of his friends. And so to then see him kind of acting more reserved and kind of like almost nonchalant, maybe he, if you look at it from an outside, or, to try and look deeper into it, he's probably just feeling really shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably feeling really shit, and like he almost doesn't matter anymore. And so he just kind of gives up. Like he just doesn't.
He just exists.
Bother. Yeah, he just exists. He doesn't bother trying anymore because what's the point? Everyone else is moving off doing their own stuff. I'm just kind of stuck here.
Mm-hmm. And he even says it as well in terms of him not even giving much. Like, doesn't seem to put much effort into his relationship with Elle either. And like people criticize that, and they're like, "Oh, well, he was in love with him." He basically spells it out for everyone. It's like the reason why he doesn't say "I love you" as much as he should is because he was worried that it would hurt more if they ever broke up. But also, if he put in too much effort, like he's basically gone, "Oh, this relationship is dying. I don't want to kill it off, but it's dying. Therefore, I'm just going to coast along." Yeah, I don't know. It's a very realistic take. I've seen many a person go through that. I feel like I might have gone through that before in my life. And also, when you're in a relationship with someone for long enough and then get separated, whether that's for a breakup or long distance or whatever, there's part of you that doesn't even know who you are anymore as a individual because you're so used to you being a couple. And so there's probably an element of that as well. I feel like Dustin has progressively been becoming the leader of the party as well because he's been being more charismatic and hanging out with older people and such like. And so Mike doesn't even have the status quo of just being the leader because he's not really anymore. I mean, I totally think in season 5, Dustin's basically going to be the leader of the kid group. That's not really kids anymore, but I think that's his role in season 5.
Yeah, either that or they kind of bring Mike back to form because obviously they had the whole "you're the heart."
I think Mike will be the heart,
everything.
but Dustin will be the leader. Because
I think
maybe. The whole... I saw someone recently comment, so we're possibly changing lane a little bit here. I also saw someone comment saying, what was the point of Eddie's story? Like, it was enjoyable, but what was the point in it if they just did what they did? I mean, we're in spoilers, should I just say?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about it anyways.
Yeah. They killed off Eddie. And someone was like, what the fuck? Why would you even introduce such a lovable character if you were just going to kill him? What was the point? Blah, 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 blah. Which is peak stupidity. But part of the point as well, I think, was Eddie is a leader, but he has more flaws, I would say, than Dustin. But he teaches Dustin how to be a leader. Dustin is basically the leader of that entire group except for Nancy in the first section of season 4. He gets Steve, Robin, and Mac. Well, I guess Max and Dustin team up together, but like Dustin kind of takes charge of trying to find Eddie. He gets Steve and Robin involved, and then they obviously team up with Nancy, and he's kind of like, you know, one of the leaders of that group despite being one of the younger members. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's his role going forward, as he's the leader. Steve's the heart. I don't know what Lucas and Will are specifically, but
I
they're in
mean,
it too.
Mike's the heart.
Mike, who did I say? Steve?
Yeah.
Steve's also the heart. Let's be honest. Steve's the heart of the show.
Yeah. I mean, very true. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Yeah, especially after Eddie's dying words to him, it does make sense that Dustin would, you know, take that seriously and, you know, try and fill that role. I think maybe like in season 5 when something, you know, next big thing happens and, you know, they all have to sort of group together and whatever, I could see them going down the route of him maybe trying too hard and like maybe not just quite getting there, but by the end of it he like, you know, pulls everything together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of the characters had a lot of really good like development this season. But yeah, Eddie. They introduced...
did the worst thing, because every season they've introduced a character who's likable just to kill them off. But this one was the worst of them all.
It
but
really
also from the very first trailer, I was like, he's probably gonna die, because you see him playing the guitar surrounded by the bats, and you're like, I'm not sure how he's gonna get out of this, and then you have a little bit of hope that maybe he will. But yeah.
I was absolutely heartbroken.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like, Eddie, in the space of one season, he became my favorite character of the whole show. I think he was so fucking badass. I mean, like, I'm biased because I listen to a lot of heavy metal, and obviously I play a lot of D&D, and like, as soon as he got up there and he like played the first couple of chords, I was like, yes, Master of Puppets, fuck yeah! And I got so excited, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best moment across any Stranger Things season.
I do kind of I get why it's the actual song, and I like the actual song, but part of me kind of wishes it wasn't. It was just his guitar playing. Like, the fact that you don't actually get to hear him playing guitar, it's just the song at that point. I was like, oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, I feel like it's probably better for the sequence as a whole, but I also really wish I just heard him fucking rocking out, but it's not. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been cool, but also as a fan of Metallica,
yeah,
to hear that playing like with all the bats like swarming towards him and everything, like, oh man, and like Dustin just like rocking along. Oh god, it was so good, so fucking good. And like, you know, I understand why they killed him off, but oh man, I was heartbroken. I tell you what, when Dustin was explaining to his uncle how he died and everything, and you know, they were tearing up and everything, I shed a tear.
Yeah, same.
And now, like, my eyes do not shed tears. like genuinely, it is so hard for me to actually produce tears out my eyes. Even if I want to cry, it's extremely difficult. And the only other time in recent memory, or the last time that I managed to shed a tear, was Logan.
I will say, I really liked that whole scene between Dustin and Eddie's uncle. I think it was really, really well done. If there's one little room for improvement, like I'm talking about like a 99% to a 100% improvement, like that one extra mark. He said that Eddie died a hero. Just tell his uncle that he saved your life, man. Just say that, because then he's like, even because like the uncle's like, oh, he died a hero, how exactly? You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
just like he did save your life. You're not lying if you say that. The uncle doesn't need to know that it wasn't like him stopping some rubble from collapsing on you or whatever. Just say he saved your life. But I don't know, that's like the tiniest of gripes.
I mean, he did also say that he saved the whole of
I
Hawkins,
know, but like
but like,
contextually, how the fuck does that work for a
yeah,
guy who doesn't know about the
exactly,
Upside
yeah.
Down? But also, how do people not know about the Upside Down? Because when they're driving through the town, when Jonathan and his mini van, whatever thing, are driving through the town post earthquake, one of the buildings has black fucking tentacles crawling up of it. Like, they know that's not a normal earthquake, right? How the fuck? Like, obviously they know at the end of the season people are going to start working out what with the red lightning and everything. But like, even before that, I'm like, okay, sure, the nation thinks it's an earthquake, but the people of Hawkins, they see the black tentacles crawling up the library or whatever the fuck it was. Like, that's not an earthquake.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I was baffled by that as well. But yeah, it was, oh man, I was like so disappointed that they killed him off. But again, I understand why they did it. And like, obviously, it was a very impactful moment. And
Do you want me to break your heart even more, though? And I flip-flop on this. I think Stranger Things frequently ends its seasons well, but there's also always little scenes that I wish they had expanded a little bit more on. Also, the finale is 2.5 hours long, so if they expanded on most of the things I wanted them to expand on, it would be 3 hours. But like, now I just want you to imagine Nancy, Robin, and Steve getting back to the gate and finding Dustin there with Eddie's body. Because that happened. That 100% happened. Imagine how that fucking went down.
I mean, I wanted at least someone else other than Dustin to acknowledge his death because he was the only one.
Yeah.
Everyone else gets back to normal and they're all smiley and shit. And then you have the next scene with Dustin, you know, telling his uncle and everything. And I was like, what the fuck? Like,
I think in season 5 we'll probably get some Steve and Dustin stuff where there is some comforting there, because obviously like Steve and Eddie also built a bit of a relationship. Some people think it might have been a bit of a gay relationship because Joe Quinn added in a ad-libbed line of calling him big boy or whatever. Apparently Steve's reaction there is completely genuine. It's when he's like hot wiring the camper van and he says, Steve's gonna drive it, aren't you, big boy? And Steve just goes so shippers have gone wild on that, which, you know, whatever, it's fine. But
I mean, yeah, I don't see it, but also
ship away, it's fine.
Yeah, but also my boy Steve just can't. He just doesn't get a win in the end, unfortunately.
But I don't want him to get with Nancy.
I don't care about Nancy, really. Like, just something, you know. Like, he's gone through all this shit, and like, you know, obviously Robin sort of, you know, gets a. Yeah, I mean,
A
not necessarily
a hint of happiness.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Steve's just watching, and I'm
But
just like,
it's also kind of
boy.
beautiful that he can find happiness in Robin being happy. Like,
Yeah,
I
like,
thought that was
totally,
kind of lovely.
like I smiled, you know, like when that was happening, but also I was thinking, oh man, my boy Steve's got to also get this at some point, you know.
He will have happiness by the end of season 5, or he'll be dead. I can guarantee you one of those two eventualities.
Yeah, they better not fucking kill Steve
Oh,
off. If they kill Eddie and Steve, I will fucking riot.
If they kill off Steve, I am genuinely not resubscribing to Netflix once Stranger Things is over. You'll have to release something on God tier. Oh, actually, Arcane season 2. Fuck.
Yeah.
You'll get me back for Arcane, and that will be it.
Yeah, no, that would honestly be the worst. I
genuinely thought they were going to kill Steve off when he got attacked by the bats as well.
Yeah, me too.
I was so fucking panicked. That's the good thing. Like, Millie Bobby Brown said before this season came out that they needed to start killing off more characters because there's too many at this point. And she said that they should start being more Game of Thrones like. I don't think they should be more Game of Thrones like. I think in season 5 we're probably going to have some main cast deaths. But the thing is there's this weird thing with Game of Thrones, which is that when it first started and they started killing off main characters, you'd be like, oh shit, anyone's at risk. But then you kind of get used to it. And also you start to not really expect them to kill off any of the other Starks and what have you. Like, you start to work out what main characters are potential killables and which ones aren't in the later seasons. With Stranger Things, and I don't know how they did it with a lot of caution, because they haven't killed off any main characters up to this point. It's always been new characters. But I feared for Steve's life at one point, I feared for Nancy's life at one point, and I feared for Max's life at 2 points. So, like, you know, that takes skill to not actually be renowned for killing off main characters, but also still manage to make me concerned for characters' lives. Like, that's difficult to do.
I also think that going into season 5, because obviously the way it leaves off is the Upside Down is here now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's inescapable. There's ash dropping down from the thing. Like,
No, it's snow.
think it would be. Oh yes, snow, definitely.
Mike's little sister calls it snow.
I think it would be very strange if they like did a year time skip. You know, I think season 5 is going to be going like sort of straight into it again.
They said that, but they've said that they're probably going to do a time jump because the actor's being so much older now. Which is, yeah, I agree with you. I'm like, how can you do a time jump and make it feel satisfying, but also, I don't know.
But yeah, like, I mean, regardless of whether they do that or not, it's the final season, so I would be very surprised if they decided to add as many new characters as they have.
No,
if any.
I don't think they're going to add any new character. Well, they might add like 1 or 2. I don't think they're going to add many. What they might do is make other characters that have been in the show for a while more involved in the main plot. Like, I don't know whether I want him to be, but like Mr. Clark could be involved in the story more because he's a fucking smart scientist dude who's helped without knowing multiple times. He might be able to help with knowing now. At the same time, can I imagine him fighting demo bats? No.
I mean, that would make sense as well because, I mean, obviously the government is kind of aware of it, but like, you know, it would. I don't think the kids are going to be able to go to the government because they're all going to be doing some shady shit.
And also some of the government's trying to kill Elle still.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Owens is still alive, right?
We didn't see him die, and I would be very surprised if they killed him off screen. So
yeah, so
I wouldn't be surprised if in season 5 he's in captivity, but I reckon he's alive.
So I mean, Owens is potentially alive, potentially in captivity. But I mean, if they do need scientific help or anything, it would make sense that there is a scientist in
who also
Hawkins
wasn't
that
in season 4. I get why. They're all in high school now, and he's a middle school teacher. But I missed him.
Yeah, but, you know, it could happen. But yeah, I don't think they'll add any, or at least not many. And yeah, I don't agree with the killing them all off type thing. I don't see the point.
No.
I mean, they don't need to die. Okay, sure, it is heart-wrenching when it does happen, but like, you know, the few deaths that we've had and have seen, especially how gruesome they are, it kind of already drives home the point how bad this is. And like, yeah, maybe they kill off another one, but like, I don't think they need to kill off loads because, like, I don't think it would add much to it. I think it would probably just piss a lot of people off that their favorite characters are dying for almost like no reason.
I was straight up during the finale. I was like, you better fucking undo Max's death. She better not be actually fucking dead. Max has been like
Max died than Eddie.
Nah, because I went into season 4 expecting Eddie to die because the trailer had him playing guitar while being surrounded by demo bats. I was like, oh, this character looks cool, probably gonna die. But like, Max has been one of my favorite characters basically since she's been introduced. I've really liked Max's like characterization the whole time, and I think this season did her so well. Like, she's got such a good arc this season, and like, obviously, like, everyone loves the running up that hill bit. It's an awesome sequence, and yeah, when they killed her off in inverted commas, I was heartbroken, but I was also like, but you better fucking undo it. There better be some shenanigans going on. And then Elle does a little bit of shenanigans, and it cuts away, and I'm like, yeah, that's right, you better fucking confirm. And then they confirm it, but kind of don't. I'm like, she better not be fucking dead in season 5. So
yeah, I think the only like thing with Eddie's death that I was like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't really want to say disappointed, but I was just a little, I guess, upset the fact that obviously he was branded a murderer by the town, an occultist and a satanic worshipper.
He doesn't have any justice at the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
but I reckon that's going to happen by the end of season 5. The thing is,
I really hope so. But
I genuinely think season 5. I have no idea how season 5 is going to end, and I'm actually a little bit worried that they might have jumped the shark with season 4's ending, because I'm like, where the fuck do you go? Like, if everyone in Hawkins now knows about the Upside Down, or potentially everyone in America, doesn't that kind of ruin part of Stranger Things, which is the fact that like they're all on their own and no one would believe them, sort of thing? I don't know. I'm not going to say it does, because they've done well for 4 seasons so far, so I have no reason to say that season 5 is ruined by that, but I am a little bit worried by that final scene, because it feels too big and too extreme for the world of Stranger Things. But I do think that in the course of season 5, you'll probably have basically what happened at Hawkins' lab, what happened to Barb, what happened to Eddie. All of that will become public knowledge, I reckon, and all of those characters will have like the closure, basically. Because if you think of like Barb's parents still don't know what happened to Barb. So like, you know, yeah, I think all of that will kind of, and Billy as well. Yeah, I think all of that will be resolved and people will get closure.
Yeah, and I like just talking about this. I also think it's I think it was great that they like covered the whole satanic panic thing. Like I thought that was I thought that was done really well. And you know, it gets really frustrating, especially when you just see all these people, you know, like what's his name?
Jason?
Is Jason the
one
leader of the
who,
basketball team?
yeah, the one who's trying to avenge Chrissy.
Yeah. Like, I think that character was done well as well, from going to like sort of understandable, you know, he thinks that someone killed his girlfriend, to just completely fucking batshit insane and totally like brainwashed by media.
That he's consumed in the week?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you just get really frustrated with it, because it's like, hey, you're so close to knowing the truth, but you just can't accept it. And you know, knowing that type of sort of thought process was real back in the day, you know, like it's mind-blowing to see that presented in this way.
What just bloomed at me? I just got a weird notification noise, but I have no idea what my work laptop is. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Yeah, and I really like what they did with his character. I mean, I dislike him as a character, but I really like the arc that he went on. But also, a wildly different season of when he saw his mate get killed in the lake. He'd like not thought that was satanic rituals, and was actually like started investigating properly and then discovered the Upside Down. That would have been a hell of a weird twist, right? Like the fucking jock teaming up with all, I mean, I guess that's almost Steve, right? But I don't know. But one thing I will say as well, just like random thoughts, with volume 1 and volume 2 being separated by 6 weeks, during the kind of final showdown, during the redo of running up that hill, when Hopper picks up the fucking gladiator sword, I was like, where the fuck did that come from? And it took me like a good 5 seconds to go, oh right, yeah, they had like actual weapons when they were fighting the Demogorgon before. Got it. I was like, if I'd binged this all in one go, that wouldn't have, the question wouldn't have popped up at all. But because there was like 6 weeks between it, I was like, what the fuck? Like, he's got an actual like medieval sword. What?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I do remember at the time just saying to the guys, like, why is there just a random sword there? And then yeah, like later I was like,
oh yeah.
did they just like, they had AKs and stuff, and then they just had a sword in with all the like guns and everything? Yeah, I mean, slightly weird, but like
all of the prisoners who were supposed to fight the Demogorgons had actual weapons.
Yeah, and then they just thought, for shits and gigs, if anyone wants to use a sword, like,
Yeah.
to throw that in there.
I also like how the Demogorgon is like barely hurt by bullets in season 1, but one slash from a sword takes its arm off.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm fine.
tell
I
me
don't
about
care. Like, it's whatever, but it's just kind of funny. Going back, I was saying, and I have kind of, as I say, kind of gone back a bit based on what you said, but I do think, part of me does think that they could have potentially cut off Hopper's first escape from the prison scene. I do think his relationship with the guard is good, so keeping all of that in is good, and it makes things like the Agent Orange scene much better because they have this relationship. But also, if you track his arc, he tries to escape once, fails. Joyce shows up, he manages to escape a second time, and then he goes back into the prison a third time. You kind of could have just left him in the prison the whole time, and Joyce discovers him there, and then everything goes to shit. But there are good character moments within that. Potentially, if they'd rewritten a lot, they could have kept those cool character moments in without having to spend as much time with him. But yeah, I do think that his sequence potentially could have been shortened down a bit, but it would involve a lot of rewriting.
Yeah, I think from the character perspective, though, the reason for his first escape is because he thinks he's getting out of there. You know, he thinks he's got these people coming for him, and he has that sense of hope, especially when he goes to Yuri's bunker, or, you know, like, hideout, and, you know, he eats the peanut butter and everything. That is the one moment of bliss he's had in a long time.
When he
and he
eats the
thinks
gift.
and he thinks he's finally going to, you know, get out of there and almost return to like a normal life. And then because of Yuri's change of heart, that gets ripped away from him, and all hope then is almost lost. Like, he just kind of resigns to the fact that, okay, that was his one chance, it's over. And I think that is key for that character, to then finally have them show up at the facility, at the prison, and like see that sort of hope return. And it kind of gets him fired up to, like, you know,
he has fight again.
Yeah, he has fight again, and like, okay, now he has something to actually live for. Because I mean, obviously, when he was discussing the Demogorgon with all the other guys that were going to be pitted against it, he was so negative and like depressed about the whole thing, just basically saying, you can try, but we're all going to die anyway. You know, so he totally loses any sort of will to live because he just thinks it's over. And then as soon as he sees Joyce and Murray up top, he's like, I now have something that I need to escape for again. I need to fight this, I need to get through this. And I think if we hadn't seen that first escape, he just wouldn't have been at that really low point.
Yeah. I think either way, any reservations that I could have with his storyline, and any reservations really that anyone could have, I think are completely thrown out the window by that Agent Orange talk. Hopper's whole arc with his daughter and the slow reveal of that stuff has been so fucking good. And I think that's what... My work laptop again. I think that's one of the... As much as I like Season 3 a lot more on a rewatch, I think one of my biggest gripes with Season 3 when I first watched it in particular was the characterization of Hopper, where you went from this lovable, scarred character to being mostly comedic relief in Season 3. And then I feel like if they just brought in a little bit more of that original Hopper, that he has that baggage, that would have worked a lot better in Season 3, but he's almost completely devoid of that baggage. But then Season 4, they're just like, it's back on, and he's, that adding that extra layer of him feeling, not just having witnessed Sarah's death, but feeling responsible for it.
I mean, yeah, I can kind of get that, but at the same time, like in Season 3, in the beginning, things were going good.
Yeah.
You know, he had 11, you know, he was, you know, getting there with Joyce and everything. And so, I guess he just felt at that point, similarly to how in season 4 he had that hope the first time and then it got ripped away. He had that hope in the beginning of season 3 that like his past was behind him and he could move forward. And then suddenly it all goes to shit again. Now suddenly he's in the fucking gulag and it gets all ripped away, and that's when he starts reflecting on his past again because he feels like it just, I mean, he even says to Enzo in the jail that he basically thinks he was put there to fight and do whatever, but he also feels like there's just not any point because it is just loss after loss after loss. No. And so like I think it matches up well, and it's just a constant cycle for him.
I get what you're saying, but I think for me, season 3 is a decent season. It's still my least favorite, but it's a decent season. But I do think that Hopper being as slapstick comedic value as he is in season 3, for as much of it as he is in season 3, did, I wouldn't say do damage because I'm fine with how he is now, but it didn't do him any favors. And I think just adding a little bit more of the reasonable and, as I say, slightly baggaged Hopper, not even in a depressing sense, but just like there is so much slapstick comedy in season 3 in general, but specifically with Hopper, that felt off to me to the point that it almost felt like a different character.
But as I said, I think it just comes down to like his mindset at the time, because obviously as I said, things were going good, so maybe he did just lighten up a lot, because if you are going to be like the scarred but also kind of like in the first couple of seasons, really he was quite hard. Like obviously you could see there was the lovable teddy bear underneath, but he definitely did have that baggage that was holding him back. And you see him kind of lose that in season 3 because now he has another daughter who he actually wants to sort of build a life with, along with Joyce. And if you're just going to be that sort of hard sort of like just difficult person, like that isn't necessarily how you build a life moving forward. And so I think maybe they he lightened up because of that, and things were going good, so he didn't have to have that defense mechanism almost, and not think about all of that. But then when it all goes to shit again, it all just comes up for him. I think it's a difficult thing, really. Obviously, as viewers, you have to kind of make a lot of these assumptions and connections yourself, and obviously everything I've said may not have crossed the Duffer Brothers' minds whatsoever, and it's only like my take on it. But
that's
like
art,
to
baby.
me,
Art's open for interpretation.
To me, that's what makes the characters more enjoyable, and it makes a lot more sense to me if you look at the characters from that perspective and actually kind of think about what might be going on inside their minds rather than what they say or do, you know, with the other characters.
My final thought, because I don't want to talk too much about it, and I think we've talked a decent amount about it, but my final thought on Stranger Things 4 is I like the fact that contextually, the end of season 4, Hopper shows up at his house. He and Eleven reunite, they hug. He goes outside, he hugs Mike, which I love that. I love that detail that rather than him being a little shit to Mike, he's like, actually, like, you've looked after her, and I kind of love you as well. Like, that was kind of a beautiful moment. And then they start to see the snow. They go and investigate, and they're all walking down the hill looking over Hawkins, and Eleven walks into the decaying grass. And Argyle, who was with the group, is nowhere to be found. So Argyle presumably just wandered off stoned out of his mind.
I mean, he was He was eating those mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Back at the cabin.
I'm assuming it's because his vibe didn't quite fit with the very serious, oh shit, what's coming next shot that they wanted for the end of season 4, to just have this stone dude in the background in his colourful clothing. But yeah, I just like the fact that they just went, let's just get rid of Argyle for this bit.
It would have been so funny if, like, they were all just kind of standing there in silence, looking all worried, and he's just kind of at the back, and it just pans over to him, and he's just looking up, and he just goes, "Fuck, dude."
that should have been how it ended, yeah. Also, possibly my favourite line from the entire show up to this point is, yeah, gotta be clean to enter the mind.
Yeah,
that's what made Argyle completely worth it to me, was his reaction to the preparation of the sensory deprivation, where he's just like, he thinks he knows what's going on but totally doesn't. Yeah, that was all like great. So
he'd better be in the next season.
oh,
I swear to God,
he's in Hawkins. How can he not be in the next season?
Yeah,
he's there for it. Oh, also one last thing, actually. My theory, now it's not concrete, as many theories aren't, because they're theories, they're not actually structures. But as to what might be going on with Max, and there is a fairly good indication I'm wrong about this, which is that 11 managed to find Will in the Upside Down with her brain thing, but possibly the reason why she can't find Max is because Max is stuck in, like, her soul or whatever is stuck in the Upside Down, or her mind is stuck in the Upside Down in Vecna's mind or whatever, because Vecna got her, but then 11 saved her, but the gates still stayed open, or semi-stayed open. So I reckon, yeah, she's possibly going to be fucked up next time we see her, because she's been stuck with Vecna for a long time.
Yeah.
Or she's not going to be in season 5, and I'm going to be real pissed.
Yeah, they just kind of, they sort everything out, and then at the end, Max's eyes, open while they're all around her, and she's like, "Oh, what did I miss?" That would suck. That would suck.
Also, the Duffer Brothers said that God, Caleb McLaughlin, I think is the name of the actor who plays Lucas. It's Caleb something. And Sadie Sink gave amazing performances in the final episode. They weren't wrong. That scene, and also the scene between Dustin and Eddie, just masterclasses in acting. Although apparently Dustin and Eddie's scenes weren't shot on the same day. Eddie's coverage was apparently shot first, and then they ran out of time. I'm guessing this was during COVID, and so Dustin's shots are 6 months later or something.
Damn.
Yeah, couldn't tell whatsoever.
I'll tell you what. Gaten Mazzarato, such a good fucking actor. I think he is the best actor in the show, quite honestly. I think he's better than the adults, except maybe Murray. I think Murray is great.
Murray is great.
Yeah. I think he plays that role just perfectly.
But I feel
he's
that's
also
because
another one of my favorites this season.
I feel like the Duffer Brothers wrote that part for him, though.
Yeah, for sure. Every time he was on screen, I enjoyed every single moment of it.
Son of a bitch! It was a great moment.
When I love the fact that they've actually made him into a badass. He's not just this dude that always says all this crap and then just doesn't deliver. No, he fucking delivers. He can speak Russian fluently. He can use karate and shit.
That's peak what I mean about some of the season 3 stuff working for me, is moments like him being like, "I know kung fu," and I'm like, "Oh no, you fucking don't." And then he does. I'm like, actually, this is kind of hilarious, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, presumably he's in Hawkins as well, right? I don't think I saw him with the group, so. But I hope he's in Hawkins.
I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good time. I think I'm still not 100% sure whether I prefer it to season 1, but season 1's got such a special place in my heart. But if it's not better than season 1, it's damn fucking close. It's neck and neck, but it's just flip of a dice what mood I'm in, I think.
Yeah, there just wasn't like it's so difficult for me to nitpick. Like genuinely, the only thing that I would have changed in this season is Eddie dying, and that's simply because I love the character so much. But as I said, I understand why they did it. But everything else, like, I can't really fault. Like even the small little nitpicks, like how does Hawkins not know it's the Upside Down by now, or
I mean, maybe they
stuff like
do.
that.
Maybe they do,
Yeah,
because
like
the thing is as well with Stranger Things endings is that endings are always kind of not rushed, but they don't cover everything and they pick up some stuff next season. A prime example of that is season 3. Billy dies, Max cries. Then we see a bunch of other characters reuniting and realizing the characters are dead and whatever. And then you have the scene of the buyers packing up their house, and Max and Lucas are singing Neverending Story and having fun and giggling and whatever. And they all seem very happy. And in season 4, she's depresso. Like,
yeah,
and the thing is that doesn't even not make sense. Like, I've seen some people say that that doesn't make sense. Like, people can have good days and bad days. Like, I can't remember how much of a time jump it is between the Star Wars incident and the very end of season 3, but it's like a month later at least, right? So like, she could just be having a good day, but is still in mourning, and then months and months later, she's still in mourning, and it's gotten worse because she's isolated. Like, that totally makes sense.
yeah, like exactly. The fact is she's isolated from everyone, and also like it sometimes doesn't hit immediately.
Or it does on
wears
some
you
days,
down.
and some days it does, and some days it doesn't. But nonetheless, I do think that that's an example of the Duffer Brothers not fully picking up on her arc. It's not that it doesn't make sense, but they don't really explore the aftermath of Billy's death until season 4. That's fine, but that means that I think it's the same sort of thing, is that there are going to be elements of the ending of season 4 that won't be picked up until season 5. Like things like the others' reaction to Eddie's death will probably be present in season 5, but we only really saw Dustin's reaction to it in season 4, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, some people, when something terrible happens to them, or someone else they love, they don't immediately show the deepest emotion that they have about that situation, because some people find it easier, at least in the beginning, to put on a brave face and stiff up a lip, and just kind of put on this like facade basically, and then eventually it wears them down to the point where they can't do that anymore. I mean, that's usually how it is with depression. You can put on a brave face for so long. There's that kind of meme, kind of truth thing that people say, which is usually the people with depression are like the funny ones, the ones that just kind of don't let it show, but eventually it hits them hard, and they kind of like get stuck in that rut, and they can't perform that way anymore.
That means that Steve is Vecna's next victim.
I mean, maybe, who knows?
He's got a reason to be depressed because he doesn't have a GF.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the way you look at it. I think just saying that it doesn't make sense without really thinking about it any deeper than that is just kind of
I and again, all I was trying to say is specifically that I think that they try to wrap up every single character's emotional state from one season to the next. The episodes wouldn't end. Another example is we don't really see much of how Will is reacting to having survived the Upside Down at the end of season 1. Obviously, you had the little scene where he blips into the Upside Down and he's scared, and then he pretends to be fine at the table, but that's it. There's that little, and that's more of a tease for season 2 than anything else. But season 2 properly digs deep into Will's PTSD from the Upside Down. So it's the same sort of thing, is that there will be stuff that they explore in season 5 that they would have loved to have explored at the end of season 4, but it was already 2.5 hours long. So,
like, I could actually see maybe one of the kids dying in the next season, and Dustin having a conversation with Steve or something about like how Eddie asked me to promise that I would look after them, and like maybe the whole thing of like I failed him type thing, You know, I could see at least something like that happening. Maybe not the kids, but you know, maybe him doing something and he feels like what he is doing or you know has done
I
isn't enough.
I still reckon that Will is going to not necessarily be the villain of season 5, but Will's going to get fucked up next season. Will's gone on far too long being scared, being depressed, being isolated, and then you've got the parallels between him and Henry/1/Vecna, including the fact that they both drew the fucking mind flayer the exact same, which was revealed in the final episode. But also, you just have things like Victor Creel describes Henry as a sensitive boy, which is how Joyce described Will in season 1. Like, and obviously, like, Will got infected by the mind flayer and was the first mind flayer victim. 100%, I think Will's going to have something big and dark happen next season. Not necessarily his death, but it might mean that he's like gone for a bit of season 5, and that might be Dustin's like, you know, I was supposed to look after him sort of thing. It'd also be nice because I feel like Dustin and Will haven't had that much interaction as a whole over the show. Like, they've had a little bit, but yeah, most of Will's interaction with the group has been either as the group as a whole or with Mike. So it would be cool to see other characters specifically interact with him. But yeah. To be fair, Will's kind of been shafted in that regard because season 1 he's gone the whole time, and season 2 he's possessed the whole time. So like he really only has season 3 to interact with the whole group properly, and it's him going, "Guys, can we play D&D?" But yeah. Good show, though.
Very good. Very good.
Also, completely didn't mind the episode lengths. Like, people were worried or complaining about it. I was like, 2.5 hours didn't feel like 2.5 hours. If you don't want to watch 2.5 hours in one sitting, take a break. Netflix remembers where you are in the episode.
I mean, that's what my mum did. She said, you know, I couldn't sit through the whole of the second release.
Mm-hmm.
So she just turned it off for the night, watched it the next day. I mean,
yeah. I think
you have these tools available to you.
I think as well it's funny because people probably won't blink much of an eye at watching a 2.5 hour movie, but the idea of watching a 2.5 episode of television is somehow egregious. It's like, but it's the same length of time. But
yeah, I don't get it. To each their own, I guess.
Yeah. It's the media.
Consumed in a week.
I watched Stranger Things. I watched The Boys. I watched Umbrella Academy. Played SWTOR.
Nice.
I finished the Expanse books. That's actually what. Yeah, I finished the Expanse books. They end perfectly. Like, just a beautiful circle. Great series, possibly my favorite series of books, which is impressive when you consider it's 9 books long. Usually I feel like book series, I like trilogies a lot, but much more than that, and it potentially overstays its welcome, but not the case in this series. Would highly recommend to anyone. TV show is also really good, but the book series is just fucking phenomenal. And as of today, have finished the first short story in The Last Wish. First book in the Witcher series.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's good. Except, as I said in our other Discord server, Doug Cockle and Henry Cavill both fucked up when playing Geralt, because the first line that describes Geralt's voice says he has an unpleasant voice, and Doug Cockle and Henry Cavill's voice for Geralt is both lovely, and I'd like to listen to it for hours on end, so...
Yeah. I guess that's like your opinion, man.
They have cool voices, but I wouldn't describe them as unpleasant because I like cool voices. But fair enough.
I think Doug Cockle's voice is more unpleasant than Henry Cavill's. I feel like Henry Cavill's is just a little deeper and a tiny bit grittier, whereas Doug Cockle's is like, especially, you know, I've seen a lot of clips from The Witcher 3, and you know, I've played a bit of the first Witcher, so you know, I've heard it still quite a bit, and like I feel like when he's going on to like saying longer sentences and everything, it's not as bad. But then like when he just kind of like says something very short and abrupt, like that's when you can like kind of tell that it's meant to be unpleasant.
Wind's howling.
Yeah,
Smells like rain.
It's just a bit grating, you know. But you just get used to it, I think.
Evil is evil, Strigabor. Lesser, greater, middling. It's all the same. If I'm to choose between one evil and another, I'd rather not choose at all. That's right. I've got a Geralt impression. And that's exactly how I'm reading it in my head, is with my Geralt voice. It's neither Doug, it's Doug Cockles, let's be real. But anyways.
Yeah, no, that's how I read it as well. Well, actually, no, I didn't.
You audiobooked it, didn't you?
I started to actually read the Last Wish on like a Kindle thing. And I was reading that in Doug Cockle's voice. But then I did the audiobook for the rest of it all.
Fair.
And like, yeah, I had, you know, that in my impression. So when I started playing the first Witcher and everything, I was like, oh, I don't know whose I prefer. Like, I think they both add something like really great to it. Like, I think, honestly, if you heard the audiobook version of Geralt, I don't think that is actually unpleasant at all.
I should maybe give it a little bit of a listen, just to compare.
It's like the voice acting is incredible across all of the books. Like, it's the same, like obviously it's the same guy doing every single voice, but like they are so different. It is impeccable. Like he can start speaking whatever voice and you will know exactly what character that is at any given time. But yeah, I don't think his Geralt voice is unpleasant. It's just more of like a Northern English voice, basically.
But the producers were like, Northern English, that's fucking unpleasant to listen to.
Yeah, I mean...
Have you heard that supposedly Northerners get less promotion opportunities because people think they sound less professional?
Really?
Yep. Apparently that is a thing that studies have proven, is that like Southern employees think that Northerners sound less professional, so they don't give them as many opportunities. Studies have found, and I'm like, that fucking sucks.
Yeah, that's crazy. What the fuck?
But yeah.
Yeah, I'd definitely recommend the audiobooks. I mean, I know for a fact that a lot of books I just prefer reading myself, so I get a better impression of the characters and make it up as I go. But The Witcher is so fucking good.
It's interesting as well though. The only audiobook I've listened to is The Sandman, and I haven't read The Sandman since listening to it, but I would imagine if I went back to it now, I'd probably hear the voices from the audiobook. But it's just funny how like visuals and audio do kind of imprint on you like that, because like reading the Expanse books, I watched like 2 episodes of the Expanse TV show way back when, completely forgot about it. Then one day I'd started a new job. I needed something to entertain me during lunch breaks. I went into a bookstore and saw a sci-fi book called Leviathan Wakes and went, oh, that sounds interesting. Read the blurb, went, that sounds interesting. And then started reading it and then put it away. Like, I bought it, started reading it, put it away. And then later on that day, I noticed on the like binder, the side, it said The Expanse. So that's the name of the series, is The Expanse. I went, I've watched a TV. Oh, okay. And so then, since then, I've watched the TV show, though I haven't seen the final season. And it's funny because when I first read the book, I had these very strong visuals for the characters. But now that I've watched the show as well, the characters are kind of a mishmash of the actors and my imagination. And it makes it even worse that the last 3 books in the series, there's like a 50-year time jump, which futuristic medicine means that they can like all be alive even though they're like nearing 100 and like they're still basically like 50-year-olds at that point, but like they're old, and I'm like trying to picture like this old mishmash of my imagination, and it's just weird. It's just weird.
No, I totally get that. And honestly, with The Witcher, like even though obviously I'd been exposed to the Witcher games just through like YouTube and everything, like way before Henry Cavill's show came out. When I was listening to the audiobooks, I was hearing the narrator's Geralt's voice, but I was imagining Henry Cavill with that voice, and that was so strange because I thought like I would be imagining the game version of him, because obviously that's what I'd seen for so long before. But yeah, it's so weird, like how your brain sort of perceives these things and like matches them up.
Yeah, to be fair, when I think of Geralt now, when I was reading the book, I was picturing Henry Cavill Geralt, and I think the reason why is because you've got Geralt in Witcher 1 and Geralt in Witcher 2. Witcher 2 is alright looking, but Witcher 1 is really quite old at this point, so it's kind of hard to imagine that Geralt is a real person. And then Geralt in Witcher 3, absolutely possible to imagine him, but he's old at that point, and for most of it he has a beard unless you're constantly shaving the character. So, like, and Geralt's not supposed to have a beard, so then I just go to Henry Cavill's version, which is like, he's young. There we go. So it's like loosely Henry Cavill at this point, but it might change over time.
That makes sense. But yeah, and it was weird because like obviously some other characters, like Yennefer, for example, I didn't think about Yennefer as the game version or the show version, which was really strange to me. Like I totally had a different image of her in my head.
Yeah.
So yes, it's really a strange phenomenon.
It's also super strange because I remember once reading this book series, a fantastic book series by Brent Weeks called the Lightbringer Saga. I think it's called Saga. The Lightbringer series. There we go. I can't remember what it's actually. Lightbringer something. And the main character, who I believe, if memory serves, it's been a while since I read this series. I think the main character is called Kit, and I can't remember the exact description of his skin color, but it's not. It doesn't say that he's black, but it describes something that's brown as the description of his skin color. Like, I don't think it says it, but like walnut, for instance, as a reference point. And I'm reading it, and it says that once, and I'm like, okay. Years later, they released a trailer for the next book in the series, and they've shot it live action, but it's just like a 10-second teaser sort of thing. And the character who's supposed to be Kit is black, and I remember going, oh yeah, he is supposed to be black. The whole time I've been picturing this white guy, which is, that's just fucking prejudice and upbringing and what have you and all that stuff. But yeah, it's weird. Reading's a wonderful thing, what your imagination does and doesn't fill in correctly. But yeah. Anyways, that's my media. What have you been consuming?
Pretty much all the shows you mentioned, really. Umbrella Academy, The Boys, Stranger Things. I'm still slogging my way through Rebels. And I say slogging not because I don't, want to watch it or I've lost interest in it or anything. It's just
a lot.
Yeah, there's just been so many other things that I'm watching and playing that I've kind of let it fall to the wayside a little bit, but I am watching like an episode here and there.
Where you at?
I believe I'm on either the third or fourth episode of season 3.
Okay.
So I don't really have much left to go now. I'm over halfway through. But I've also been watching a lot of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares recently.
Okay.
Do you know what? I go through these phases just every couple of years where I get really into Gordon Ramsay. And again, I have no fucking idea why that is. It seems like such a weird thing to sort of start binge watching and then just stop out of nowhere and go back to. But yeah, I love it. I know it's mostly scripted and everything, but you can really tell in some episodes that some of the stupid shit they say just really isn't scripted. It just cannot be whatsoever. And seeing some of the owners, pretty much every single restaurant, there are a few episodes where the owners totally take it in their stride and they're like, yeah, we know the food is shit, like it needs to be improved, and they actually just accept the help and go forward. But they're like most of the episodes are the owners inviting Gordon Ramsay to help them, and then when he says that their food is shit, they defend it to their deaths. And it's just incredible.
But
It's incredible to see like
you
the
know,
way they act.
you know where that is though. The producers are intentionally looking for restaurant owners who are going to behave like that.
Yeah, but like
Because
even
here's a little behind the scenes fun for you. Have you ever seen the show? What's it called? World's Strictest Parents, I think is what it's called. Yeah, reality TV show. So my mum knew someone who appeared on that show. It was a student of hers who got invited to like Turkey or somewhere. And he had been picked up from my hometown by the producers. And apparently they like barely included him in his episode because he was super polite and respectful to these parents and just did everything that they told him to do while he was staying with them. And my mum made the assessment that because he was... Oh. You still here? I'll finish telling the story for the podcast. Oh, welcome back.
I don't know what the fuck just happened there. Like my headphones just turned off, my camera turned off. That was weird.
And what my mum assumes happened though as to why they chose him but he wasn't behaving the way they wanted him to is he was like a proper metalhead goth who wore a black leather trench coat around town every single weekend. And like long black hair, piercings, and such like. And they went, that's someone who doesn't respect his parents. Let's get him on the show. And then he was just like this super nice, polite guy who just did everything that he was told to and made shit reality TV because the producers picked the wrong kid.
Yeah, I mean, that goes to show, like, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah. Eddie Munson might be a good guy.
Exactly. But yeah, like it baffles me though, because okay, sure, they choose these owners specifically, but you got to realize they're still just human beings, and the fact that they even think to themselves that it's okay to microwave all their food to serve to Gordon Ramsay and everything, knowing what he's like, it's ridiculous. And okay, that could be scripted. But there are definitely instances where the veil is lifted and you see that these owners are just as fucked up as they appear to be. Like there was this one episode I was watching, I think yesterday or the day before, where this one owner, there were 3 owners for the restaurant. One of them just kind of got like booted out because he was pretty useless and he just didn't contribute anything. The other owner actually had passion and, wanted the restaurant to succeed and embraced all the changes and everything. But this other owner, he, when the revamp for the restaurant was done, he was like, it's fine. It's nothing mind-blowing. When everyone else was, like really happy and whatever else. And you think, okay, well, maybe it's not his cup of tea, whatever. And then Gordon Ramsay changes the menu and he makes all this like lovely looking food and everyone's like, oh my God, that's delicious. Like this is going to change your restaurant. He was going around and he was like, nah, I don't really like that. And then he'll go to something else and he's like, well, I don't like that shrimp thing. And that was him constantly. He was so negative the whole episode and confrontational. Like he'd confront the customers and everything and like try and prove them wrong. He was just condescending, patronizing. And now, okay, sure, it's easy enough to just say, oh, well, clearly, he, like that's just scripted or whatever, or edited in such a way to make him look like a dick. But then after like the episode aired and everything, they closed down like 4 days after the episode aired or something because the owners decided to go back to the way the restaurant was the day after Gordon Ramsay left. And then that particular owner wrote an open letter to their fans and everything, a massive long letter of this owner saying how they were basically blaming Gordon Ramsay for a 50% drop in their revenue because their customers didn't like the new menu and look and everything. And bearing in mind that they wouldn't have been able to like all the customers that were there loved it, and they were like, oh, they were all actors. All the customers were actors. And he then goes on to say like how Gordon Ramsay was a jerk and was wrong about everything. And then he goes on to wish his untimely death so that he could dance on his grave. If you're trying to make yourself look better and someone else look worse, why the fuck would you say something like that? That is very telling about the person you are. And
This just makes me want
brilliant.
Papa John's, not the restaurant, but the actual man, to appear in Gordon's Kitchen Nightmares.
That would be funny.
Because that sounds like Papa John to me.
Yeah, I mean,
fucking lunatic.
Honestly, some of these people are just, as you said, lunatics. Like, it just doesn't make any sense why they would portray themselves this way, even after the show is finished. It's crazy. And yeah, God, I love it so much. It is some of the funniest shit I've watched. And also, there are just like some people in there that are just massive stereotypes. Like, they're almost cartoons of what you would, you know, of certain people.
Mm.
And God, some of the characters, it's just amazing. It's so good to watch. Just been binging it, and bearing in mind they're like 40-minute episodes, I've probably watched like fucking like 30 odd over the last week.
You probably could have finished Rebels in that time.
I probably could have, yeah, but Kitchen Nightmares has its hooks in me at the moment.
Well, I think that's time for the show.
Been like 3 hours now, hasn't it?
We're about 4 minutes off. Hey, Alex,
fuck.
if people like this show, what else do they watch?
They should also go and watch Star Wars Leviathan.
I wasn't trying to promote that, but thanks, bud. I was thinking like on this channel.
Oh, all of our other podcasts.
Yes, which is called
The Higgledy Piggledy
Shut the cyber
podcast.
fuck up, you gonk, and listen to the Higgledy Piggledy podcast.
Right.
Thanks for watching.
Also, like, comment, share,
We
subscribe.
already did that at the beginning.
Yeah, but it's nice to do it again at the end. Bye.